there is violent speech. It happens. Charlie Kirk was in favor of that.
What I haven't seen is people going, we need to look at extremism in general and tone down the temperature.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, Josh. It's not going to happen.
From what I can see, it's just escalating.
Yeah, I'm going to get myself in trouble for saying this. No, we need to turn the temperature up.
What's up, guys? I'm Joshua Rubin, and this is the Wide Awake podcast. Today's guest is someone whose life is unfolded in the global spotlight, yet he rarely speaks publicly about it. I sat down with Hunter Biden, artist, lawyer, and son of former US President Joe Biden, right here in Cape Town, South Africa. For years, Hunter has been at the center of international controversy, his name tied to political scandals. Before leaving office, your father made the decision to pardon you, right?
Yeah.
What did that moment mean to you personally? And do you think it was fair?
Yes.
Conspiracy theories. Your father, there has a conspiracy that he is a clone and Joe Biden was replaced and that he's not actually him.
No, that is true.
And struggles with addiction. That's how bad it got and how much I had done this. I came to the conclusion that the only place it could be is under her pillow.
I'm sorry, your story in a good way. Thank you for sharing that. Because that's the thing that is keeping me alive.
In our conversation, absolutely nothing was off limits. We discussed everything from Elon and Errol Musk to Trump, Charlie Kirk, the Epstein files.
Melania's lawyers sent me a letter saying they're going to sue me for $1 billion. My response to that was, please do, please. In court, I would have the right to subpoena and depose and seek discovery from every single person in their circle that would or potentially have knowledge about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
And what it means to live under relentless public scrutiny. What followed was an unfiltered and honest sit-down with one of America's most talked about figures. This is my full interview with Hunter Biden.
By the way, whatever happened to Hunter? Where the hell is he?
Hunter, welcome to the Wide Awake podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
What are you doing in South Africa?
Well, my wife is South African, and her family is here. We have been living in California since we've been married for the past 6.5 years or so. And when all of the political and personal stuff came to an end in the last 6 months, I'd always promised that we would spend some time over here. So, we're trying to be between Cape Town and in the States, go back and forth. And Bowie's about that age that I can do that. And also my house in Malibu, it didn't burn down. It's a rental, but it didn't burn down. But every house around it.
The Palisades fire.
Yeah, and so we're in that first neighborhood up on a hill in Malibu as you go into Malibu, and I think something like 280 out of the 315 houses in that development all burned down. It goes way up a hill. And so we can't go back anyway. So,
okay.
And I've fallen madly in love with Cape Town. You guys do not know how good you have it here. It's the most beautiful city in the world.
Yeah.
Truly.
I mean, I know I've got a lot of, I've been into treatment as well, which I think we have in common. And a lot of people come to South Africa for recovery and for the treatment centers because it's very affordable and the care is so good here.
I didn't know that.
It's amazing care.
Yeah.
And pretty much every foreigner that came for treatment
stayed.
Yeah,
exactly. So you got a bunch of new addicts instead of all the homegrown ones.
Yeah, pretty much. We're importing them in.
Addicts in recovery are the best kind of people, in my opinion. So,
I agree too.
Yeah.
What is your favorite things about South Africa, and what?
Okay.
Is not,
number one.
What do you not love about South Africa?
If you're a traveler, one of the things that anybody that travels a lot always notices first is the food. The food here is incredible. I mean, it is across the board the most consistently good food from the corner burger place to the super fine dining at 1/20th the cost that it is in the States, anywhere in the States. And it really is amazing. And it actually, you feel it in your body. The other thing about Cape Town is that I absolutely love It is definitely like it's a international city. It's still a very local place, and I don't know whether that makes any sense. I'm
It
not being
does,
very
yeah.
articulate.
I mean, it's people from all over the world here, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's got its
But-
own culture and vibe to it from the locals.
Exactly. It is an incredible place to be, particularly right now, and it's kind of nice to be away from the immediate grasp of the madness that is going on at home.
Were you following the whole thing when our president Cyril Ramaphosa went to America to speak to Trump? Did you follow any of that?
I did.
With the whole white genocide narrative, and
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts on that at all? Or
What an embarrassment. I mean, there's so many things that I've been, I am really, really proud to be an American. I am, I've spent my entire life not only loving this country, but believing that despite all of our failings, America is, it makes me emotional even to think about it because I feel like we're losing it, has the capacity to do so much good in the world. And to watch the leader of the free world, uh, the president of the United States, uh, the representative of an entire nation, uh, treat another country the way and another leader the way that he did your president, regardless of what you think of your president.
yeah,
It was just so embarrassing. And I mean, he's so full of shit, man. He has, number one, he has no idea what he's talking about. Number two, I don't think he could find South Africa on a map. And that's not an exaggeration in any way. I really mean it, for real. I do not think that he would know the difference between South Africa and Sudan if you asked him. And he has no idea about the population of South Africa. I mean, one of the things that I don't think people understand is that South Africa, the white population in South Africa is about 8%, 10%.
it's very small. Yeah,
Very small. It's very small, which I think that is understandable if even people that are well informed don't understand that. And I think that they don't understand that because of their collective understanding of apartheid and can't possibly comprehend how 8% of the population could have controlled 92% of the population for as long as they did under apartheid.
yeah.
Having said that, this whole idea of white genocide, I know that there has been a violence on farms. I heard what your president said. I've heard what people that I respect and trust here have said that it's a problem. It is but the notion, how offensive to call it genocide.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it was blown completely out of proportion. The one thing I will say is that, farming is a huge industry here in South Africa.
Yeah.
And there definitely is a tax on farms.
Yeah.
100%. Is it a genocide? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Is it a problem? Yes.
Yeah.
But what our president said in that talk with Trump was that we don't have there's no genocide going on with white Afrikaners.
Yeah.
There's a crime problem in general, and people are dying across the board in this country.
Yeah.
Which they are, which is the truth.
Let me tell you where the genocide is about to occur, and is occurring right now. Directly because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Donald Trump, under the direction of Elon Musk, ended USAID, a government organization that has been in existence since the late 60s, and have saved. And when I was talking about what the good that the United States could do, it could not be more embodied than in the work that USAID has done over the course of decades. Every single major study that has been done ever since USAID ended, which was back in May, and it's ended, it's gone, okay, is that over 14 million people are going to die because of the end of USAID. And the genocide here is going to be in the fact that it is not as if 14 million people are going to die in the next 5 years. By the way, 4 million of them are children under the age of 5. And it's not like I'm saying If we all just got together, if the United States could muster the support of the world, we can come up with the resources and we can figure out how to be able to change these people's lives and give them hope and a chance for existence. That's not what I'm talking about. What they did is they went in and they flipped the fucking switch. And because they flipped that switch, 14 million people are going to die. 4 million of them are going to be children.
Yeah.
That's a fucking genocide. Excuse my language.
It's okay.
That is a genocide.
And in terms of USAID, that was Elon's suggestion to cut it.
Yeah, 100%.
So, which is incredibly upsetting because he is from South Africa. And even though he might not love South Africa, he knows the way people live here. I mean, the poverty in this country, while it may be on the outskirts, and Cape Town is a beautiful area, but I know so many people, and I always visit the areas surrounding Cape Town.
Yeah.
People are living in absolute dire poverty.
Yeah.
And for someone that has experienced it, has seen it, and knows it, it's crazy to me how callously he cut it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But in terms of Elon, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about him and his current trajectory?
I mean this sincerely. After watching your interview with his father, which was incredible, by the way, you did an incredible job.
Thank you.
Where I think other people kind of allowed his megalomaniacal bullshit to roll over them and intimidate them in interviews that I'd seen with him before. Is you just kept stopping him and saying, but wait, explain this, because you keep saying it's normal, but
It's
just
not
so you know, no one thinks this is normal. So explain it. It was a really brilliant job. And then, of course, I watched the follow-up with the family member. And then obviously your reporting was the anchor of the reporting of the New York Times, which, they took full credit for it, but that was all you. I mean, all you. And but my point about it was this, is that for the first time ever, I felt sorry for Elon Musk. And for those who have not watched this, who may be coming to this podcast to watch me cuss and throw around the F word. My dad wasn't very happy.
You got a lot of flack for that, eh?
I said, have you listened to yourself? What I didn't realize is the degree and to the length of how sick Elon's father is. And he's clearly a psychopath. And he's a psychopath, and so we understand, that's not based on just like I'm calling somebody a psychopath. That's based upon
the interview.
I not only watched the interview, but then I read the reporting based upon the reporting that you did, the New York Times. And one of the things that I know a little bit about, just because of the work that my brother did, my brother was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He prosecuted a guy named Bradley. Dr. Bradley was a pediatrician, and he was, quote unquote, a well-respected pediatrician in the lower part of my state in Sussex County. And he was one of the only, not one of the only, but he was the most prominent and probably the largest pediatric care facility connected to the major hospital down in Sussex County in Delaware. And he had, been a doctor in the community for decades. And there's always stories about Dr. Bradley. It was weird. These kids would be really uncomfortable. They would scream and they wouldn't want to go to Dr. Bradley, more so than any, just not wanting to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And it turns out that accusations were made and nobody ever did anything about it. And then a couple of years would go by and more accusations would be lodged, but nobody in the medical board or nobody in the state police, nobody in the local police wanted to, because he's a respected pediatrician, kind of like a respected priest or a respected rabbi or the football coach that everybody loves at the elementary school. There's a reason why pedophiles go to places where kids are. Dr. Bradley, over the course of decades, had raped preverbal children, videotaped it all, over 250 cases. And the reason my brother figured out there was 250 cases is this, is he finally had the courage to say, fuck this, and sign the warrant to go into Dr. Bradley's offices, be damned what, the community said or that it was overreach, because there were credible accusations. And he did a lot of the investigation beforehand that nobody would do. And they found videotapes. He would take the children from the exam room with their parents and say, I have to see your child alone. He would take them down into a room and they pre-verbal. He was this much of a sociopath. They were pre-verbal so that he knew that they couldn't actually express to their parents exactly what happened. And he would rape 2- and 3-year-olds. My point is this. A lot of people think that, understandably, that crime is like, well, you did it once and that's it. Everyone who works in this field, and I worked with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for a period of time in my own career, and knows this, is that it's never once. And that is the thing that you're reporting exposed about Errol Musk. And that it has been over the course of decades and decades. And I'm not saying that he sexually abused Elon. I have no idea whether he sexually abused Elon. But he was clearly an abusive person, even by Elon's words. And it seems to me now I have a little bit of a better understanding. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but I think that recovery gives you a kind of different perspective, a different way, a different language, a different kind of a little bit more of an ability to, if you are in the center of that stream, to understand why people do stupid things. Like
Of
a lot of
course.
stupid
I
things
mean-
I did, or a lot of stupid things that people, that,
Yeah.
I always say, nobody comes into recovery on a winning streak. You know what I mean?
And that's why,
Yeah.
when I've obviously heard about all of the things you've
Yeah.
been through and the scandals and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and it's like, I could never imagine
Yeah.
being who I was in active addiction
Yeah.
while I had the spotlight you had.
Yeah.
It must have been, we'll get to it later, but
Yeah.
it's just, I understand it.
Yeah,
you know?
no. And so what I think is that a question about Elon is this, is that clearly he's brilliant. And, and people say, oh, he didn't invent Tesla. He didn't invent PayPal. Well, look, man, the man is brilliant. I don't know what makes a genius, but he is brilliant. He's brilliant like Edison was brilliant, who was also a horrible human being, but he brilliant. And I think Elon realizes that because of how brilliant he is, and because of the way that he has been able to parlay that into a level of financial success that the world hasn't seen since since Rockefeller, that he could do good or do evil. But I think what it all comes down to with Elon is he's looking for a dad. And I know that sounds trite and like I'm like being an armchair psychologist and that I am, but I think that he's a man that is desperate to prove himself to a father figure. And that's his attraction to Trump. And Trump said, yeah, come on, son. Like, come in and, play with all the toys. And I think you're the greatest and you can do anything you want, until Trump, who was also abusive, did the same thing to Elon that his dad probably did to him his whole life, which is berate him and embarrass him and punish him and deny him love, not let him back in the room, tell him he couldn't be on the plane anymore.
Tell him he was going to take his toys away.
Tell him he's going to take his toys away.
And he lashed out kind of like a child would on Twitter.
By the
on
way,
X.
he not only lashed out like he did like a child would on Twitter, he walked into the Oval Office in a T-shirt and a black eye because he supposedly got in a fight in the hallway beforehand. I mean, like he, and by the way, wanted everybody to see it.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, but think about it. Is it really bizarre? He is, it's bizarre in the context of...
These are like the most powerful figures in the world.
People in the world. But everybody's human. And I just, and I also look at Elon from my vantage point as an addict in recovery, and I see the addiction run through all of it. I mean, all of this talk about his ketamine use and things like that, I don't care what people do but when your behavior becomes so obviously erratic, don't tell me not to talk about it when you have your hands on the kill switch of USAID that's going to kill 14 million people.
And it's not about judging someone
Yeah.
for their addiction, right?
Yeah.
You know it's a disease, and
Exactly.
you cannot control it, but you can be critical when that person literally has their hand on the
Exactly.
nuclear button. And
Yeah.
that's obviously he doesn't, but
I'll
you know
tell
what I
you
mean.
what.
He's got his hands
I,
in a lot of very powerful spaces.
I'm sure Elon would, if to respond to this, it would say, well, he's wrong and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and 14 million people aren't going to die, and people are going to backfill this, and other people need to take it over, and why should it be our responsibility? And I did the responsible thing, the hard thing that nobody else would do. 14 fucking million people are going to die, and we can stop it. We can stop it. If you wanted to reform USAID for all the reasons that you say, and the conspiracies, you go on Joe Rogan and you say that it's a CIA-run operation and it's this, that, and the other thing, you have control of government now. Somebody gave you the keys to the entire car.
Yeah.
You can drive it wherever you want in a way that no one else has been able to do ever before, okay? Without any guardrails, without any oversight from this Congress, without any oversight from the Department of Justice. You can do all of that. Why not figure a more humane way to do it than to flip the switch and kill 4 million children? Why not? Why? I mean, I don't get it. There are better ways to do it that aren't just about being more humane, but literally to save money. You know how much money you just wasted? You know how much money that was already outlaid in terms of the purchase of these drugs and the purchase of these foods? You know how much this harms U.S. farmers and our economy? It is just so irresponsible and vindictive and strange. But again, I really mean it. That to me is someone who is not in control of obviously the brilliant mind that he possesses. Things have digressed to a degree that I truly do not recognize my country anymore.
And I mean, in terms of Elon, right? He's been relatively critical of you and your family.
Yeah.
When someone with that much influence and power and such a big platform goes after you and your family, does it still affect you, or are you kind of just numb to it at this point?
Oh, I don't know whether I'm numb to it. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know whether that's the most accurate description of it. I think what I am is, particularly to people like Elon. Elon's attacks against me, just the full frontal ex post attacks against me, were just so juvenile, and like look in the mirror, man. Like, are you? I mean, and by the way, like everyone in Los Angeles knows what Elon was like, and has been like with women, with drugs.
Is it public knowledge, or is it kind of like within
secret.
that? Okay.
It's open secret within a community of people, and it's not much of a secret either. And so the hypocrisy of it is pretty galling. But who cares? You know what I mean? I deal with hypocrites every day, and sometimes I'm a hypocrite. You know what I mean? But so that was the full frontal attack. The side swipe was empowering X as a platform in and of itself. This weaponization of government and how the free speech and this whole thing about it. It's just so much bullshit. So much bullshit. That was more insidious. I mean, and how much it impacts things on the margins, I'm not sure in terms of elections or things like that. His ability to, twist the algorithms just enough. I think that it has way more of an impact than people
realize,
either realize or willing to give it credit for, because they don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand, but I know somebody who does. Elon Musk does. And an incredible team of brilliant people that work for him know how that works. And so I am hopeful that Elon has kind of woken up, that his chosen father figure in Trump and the people that surround him do not give a shit about Elon Musk. Neither as a human being nor what he thinks. He was a tool for them. I don't begrudge anyone their own politics. I have a lot of friends that are very conservative. There's a difference between being conservative and being a Christo-fascist, though. And I can engage in debate with people that have very conservative values and have very conservative economic values and have very conservative religious and moral values, and I can understand that. A lot of people in my family have those values. I cannot engage in debate with someone who is or in every aspect of their political speech is a Christo-fascist white nationalist. And I'm not saying that Elon himself has gone so far as to express some of the things that somebody like a Nick Fuentes believes, or some of the things that Charlie Kirk put out there, or some of the things that or Stephen Miller clearly is engaged in trying to put into action within the United States. Sometimes it's hard to not see guilt by association when it happens over and over and over again. So Elon breaks from the Trump administration, but then beams into that protest in London, and basically says, like, you're losing your country to the to the evil horde, and it makes it very much about race and class and us against them. And again, populism has been a tool for politicians, since Huey Long and way before that. But we are at I think, an inflection point in not just my country, but in the world. And we're going to have to make some choices. And I don't know. I don't know whether we are able to. I don't know if we've already gone over the cliff. And it's about what we do when we land.
I mean, looking from the outside, it seems that things happen and people seem to watch it happen, but not believe that it's happening. For example, something like Elon doing the Nazi salute, right? During that rally.
Yeah.
Do you think that he was doing the Nazi salute?
I think Elon was on drugs. I think he was high as shit at that. I mean, I looked at him. I know high people, and I don't know for certain. And so, I'm already getting threatened to be sued by a lot of people, or at least by one. But but I watched that event, and I think everybody was high, out of their minds. And I think he went up there, and in the heat of the moment, he thought this is the ultimate troll. Thought it would be funny. Thought it would be, like again, immature, childish humor of someone who has been repressed and is seeking love outside of themselves because they cannot love themselves because their parent or their father or the one that abused them told them that they are not lovable. And I know that sounds like I've been living in LA too long, but that's what I think. And so he went up there. And he gave a Nazi salute. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And it's not a Roman salute, by the way. It's a Nazi salute. Unless, I mean, just like this whole thing is like what a bunch of fucking semantics.
It's the same thing.
It's the same goddamn thing. And I don't know how you defend that. And he'll say, no, he did it. And, I saw Errol say, oh, he did that. It's kind of like this, though. Like, okay, you do it. You do it just how he did it on camera. I know I'm not doing it. I don't know anybody else that would, except a Nazi. And I think one of the things that there's this whole debate in the United States right now. And it's not a debate. It's bullshit. Trump saying, and Speaker Johnson and all of these MAGA saying, this is because you call us Nazis. Well, stop acting like Nazis. Stop acting like fascists, and I'll stop calling you a fascist. But you're a bunch of fucking fascists.
For me, what really kind of sealed the deal with that, I mean, obviously, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's a Nazi salute, right?
Yep.
But I think it was a few days later or a week later, Elon called into, I forgot the name of the party, but it's the far-right political party in Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, saying that we need to turn this country around.
Yeah.
I mean, people just don't, like, the dots are there. Connect them yourself.
And by the way,
and whether it's a troll or not, he's doing it.
Yeah. Just to be clear, we're not talking about a conservative political party in Germany. We're talking about basically a party that wants to bring back the Fourth Reich. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a party that is very, very close to being constitutionally illegal in Germany in the terms of the things that they promote and say. So radical that because of Germany's history and their constitution and the laws that they passed after World War II and the Holocaust, that a great deal of what this party believes in is probably could be charged with criminal behavior. That's the party that he called into. That's the party that reveres the Third Reich, reveres the Nazi Party. That's who he is supporting. So what do you want me to believe when you go on a stage and you give a Roman salute? What do you want me to believe? And by the way, this is like that, and I use it so often because, and people have said to me, you're not fully explaining what Occam Fraser really means because it doesn't mean that. All I mean is this: when the most obvious answer is before us, it's because it's the answer. Everything they say, everything they do. Stephen Miller went on TV the other day and he said the president had plenary authority. You know what plenary authority means?
No.
Absolute and total without any oversight or answering to any other authority. He's saying that the president is a king. He went on TV and said that. And so you wonder whether or not I'm concerned about our country or that I am being overwrought or hyperbolic about what is going on in the country when the most supposedly influential advisor to the president of the United States is willing to go on TV in the midst of these ICE raids in which people are not given due process nor any availability of habeas corpus. And you're telling me that he goes on TV and says the president of the United States has plenary authority, absolute and total authority to do whatever the hell he wants to do. That's what he's telling the American people. And I'm not supposed to call you a fascist? I'm not supposed to call you a dictator? You're calling yourself a dictator.
And I do, in one hand, agree. I see this kind of narrative going around that everyone is being called a Nazi, everyone is being called a fascist, everyone is being called like a homophobe. And those terms have become a lot more...
They're very different things, but yeah.
I'm just saying in terms of just being derogatory or hateful towards a specific group, right? Yeah. Like, those kind of words are being thrown around.
I'm not calling all of MAGA fascists.
No, I know. I'm agreeing with you. Though.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah.
People are so focused on these things for some reason now. Why do you think that is? So much more than it seems ever before.
What it is it's called epistemic closure. Okay? And what epistemic closure is basically saying all dogs are mammals, and Fido's a dog, so therefore Fido is a mammal, right? Epistemic closure in this context means this. Fox News goes on and says all the Bidens are criminals. It's the Biden crime family. Hunter Biden committed a crime. Therefore, all Bidens are criminals. A transgender person committed a mass shooting. Transgender people are
mass shooters.
Go down the list. And you have a media ecosystem largely controlled by the Murdoch family in the United States of America, through the New York Post to Fox News and all of its affiliates and everything in between, which is now being taken over, by the way, as CBS News, through Paramount, through all of a media ecosystem, in which all they do every day is say Democrats are the enemy, not just the enemy. I mean, exactly what Donald Trump went and said in front of every general over a one-star rank in the United States of America, all called into one auditorium together, and said exactly that. He said that he was going to use the United States cities as training ground for our military to rout out Democrats who are enemies of the state. Okay? I will tell you this, that esoteric term of epistemic closure is what locks people into what we overuse the term occult. It's no longer a cult. This is a movement. It is the same thing that we sat as students of history and wondered, like I think everybody does, is how did the German people allow that to happen? How did they allow it to happen? Here's how it happens. And I'm not saying that there is a Holocaust. And by the way, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is Hitler, because Hitler had an ideology, okay? And he had a grand plan. Donald Trump is purely corrupt. Donald Trump is a narcissistic sociopath that only cares about one thing, and that's Donald Trump. And he is a clown in that respect. He has, according to the New Yorker, amassed over $3.14 billion in the past 8 months of personal gain through his presidential acts, not just crypto, but the $400 million plane that got a $1.3 billion retrofit from the Kuwaitis, the land deals and that are happening in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Oman, in Azerbaijan, all over the world that his sons are going out and doing. Don Jr. is going. He's opening up the most expensive membership club in the United States of America, other than Mar-a-Lago, called the Executive Club. For $500,000, you can join. And the express purpose is so that you can come and speak to the decision makers in his father's administration. The express purpose of it. And there's a line to get in because everything is transactional with them. You know what tariffs are about? Tariffs are about exactly that. And so my whole point, because it's purely transactional. Donald Trump alone imposes the tariffs. Donald Trump alone can take the tariffs on a case-by-case basis for an industry by industry, company by company, individual by individual, and exempt them from those tariffs. If you pay him, if you pay his family, if you do business with him, then that's what he's doing. And by the way, it's all in the open. They are the most corrupt group of people. And in that respect, he's more like Idi Amin than he is like Hitler. Okay? And Hitler is so charged with all this shit. And the word fascism is so connected to the Holocaust, understandably so. Okay? But the fact of the matter is just look at the Webster's definition of what a fascist is, and they fit the bill. And if you don't want to call him a fascist outright, you can call him maybe a Christo-fascist. You can call him a white nationalist. It's all birds by a different color. And so my point is that maybe we haven't found the language, but they've done an amazing job of doing this kind of like kabuki move. You're increasing the chances of violence through your hyperbolic speech. I mean this. The United States of war right now is in the midst of a civil war. Not like we're going to have a civil war. We are in the midst of a civil war. It's very different from the one in which you line up on two sides and, you have muskets and skirmishes, or the people are barricading themselves in cities and there's, but let me explain something to you. When the governor of Texas mobilizes the National Guard which is connected to the U.S. Army at the direction of the President of the United States, and sends them to Chicago, Illinois, to a governor and a mayor and people that are saying, we do not want you here, to occupy their streets against their will, what would you call that? What would you call that? Because he's now done that in Los Angeles. He's done that in Portland. He's going to do it in Chicago. He's going to do it in Baltimore. He's going to do it in every blue city in the country. And what is that other than martial law? What is that other than a civil war, except the other side has not fired a shot yet? And I pray to God we do not have violence. I pray to God that it does not break out into a shooting war. But we are in the middle of a civil war here. And we are not on our way to a dictatorship. We are in the midst of a dictatorship. The President of the United States has seized all power. And a lot of it he's done legally because the Supreme Court gave him in United States versus Trump in 2024 that was decided in which the President of the United States, not just Donald Trump, my dad could have used it also, in his official capacity cannot basically commit a crime. He cannot be charged with a crime. He can commit a crime, but he does not be charged with a crime. And the wider interpretation of that Supreme Court case is that, okay, so what is not an official act while you're president? Anything you do while you're president can be deemed an official act. For instance, like accepting a $400 million jet from the Qataris in return for providing weapons programs to the Qataris, okay? And then taking that jet, getting a $1.3 billion retrofit from the U.S. Department of Defense without, by the way, any oversight or transparency about that, and getting a letter from the Department of Justice that you direct, as Donald Trump direct Pam Bondi to give him, saying after you leave office, you get to keep the jet. I mean, and we're sitting here wondering whether we're living in a dictatorship or whether or not he won't be able to be charged with that. Because you know what he did? He did it through his official capacity as the President of the United States. That immunity decision changed everything. Donald Trump came into office knowing that basically there is nothing that he could do this time that is going to result in him ending up in jail. And so he's doing it all. He's doing it all. He is running over every single principle that anyone, by the way, both sides. And this is why I don't believe all of MAGA are fascist, and I don't believe that all Republicans are fascist, and I don't even believe all people that support Donald Trump are fascist.
100%. I mean, my auntie and uncle, who I agree with on a lot of issues, are very much big supporters of Donald Trump.
Exactly, but they're not fascist. But you know what? They're missing the point. And this is why I think that I have gone beyond politics. I've gone beyond parties, and I just want to beg people, wake the fuck up, man.
I was saying this the other day is that, like, when I look at what's going on, right, there's a lot of opinions I agree with on the right, and there's a lot of opinions I agree with on the left. I'm not in America. I don't actually have to pick a side, right?
Yep.
But from an outsider's point of view, I look at things that make sense, and I go, I agree with that. And I look at on both sides, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of corruption and abuse of power, I mean, in your recent interview with journalist Andrew Callahan on Channel 5, you spoke about Jeffrey Epstein and claimed that Epstein was the one who introduced Donald Trump to Melania. After that episode went viral, both Donald Trump and Melania Trump publicly denied the claim and threatened to sue you for defamation. The story sparked massive debates online, with some demanding that the Epstein files be released and others accusing you of spreading false information. Has there been any follow-up or legal action since then? And what was your reaction when they threatened you?
Okay, so first of all I was doing was repeating what Michael Wolff, who is an author, and a brilliant author and journalist and biographer, who's written over, I think, 3 books about Donald Trump, who supposedly has more hours of interviews with Jeffrey Epstein than anyone. I think, tens, if not hundreds of hours of tapes of interviewing Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein, supposedly, according to Michael Wolff, Jeffrey Epstein is the one who made that claim to him. And by the way, it's not only Michael Wolff that said that. Maggie Haberman and another author in the New York Times in 2019 also reported that same claim. And there was an excerpt from Vanity Fair from another book in which that claim was made. So this didn't come from, I'm not like making shit up. I'm not going around like I don't have any personal knowledge. They sent me a letter saying that they're going to, Melania's lawyers sent me a letter saying they're going to sue me for $1 billion. My response to that was, please do. Please. I think that the country deserves an airing of all of this because we still do have a judiciary, and regardless of how much they are destroying our democracy, and that and in court, I would have the right to, number one, depose the person that's suing me, and that would be the individual Melania Trump, and I would have the right to subpoena and depose and seek discovery from every single person in their circle that would or potentially have knowledge about the genesis of the relationship between Donald Trump and Melania and their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And so you tell me, you think you think they're going to file a lawsuit against me? No. And now I was not shocked, but a little bit surprised that more very, very well-resourced, powerful, I don't have two nickels to rub together to be able to fund a lawsuit, but I can tell you this, we can start a GoFundMe now. And I bet you a lot of people, not just left, not just Democrats, not just people that love my dad, but a lot of people that want to find out about Jeffrey Epstein
Will support you.
Will support if they were to sue me for that. By the way, there was a book that came out, and it was excised from the book about Prince Andrew, in which it was not taken out of the UK edition, the first release, because they didn't catch the time. But I think the US edition, they took it out. But I saw the galleys of the original draft, in which it went much further than anything that I said or what Michael Wolff said from a firsthand accounting from Jeffrey Epstein about his relationship with Melania. Okay, that being said, there are so many different sides to this, okay? There's the whole argument, okay, like why do Democrats all of a sudden care about Jeffrey Epstein when they could have done X, Y, or Z? Well, your dad, your dad should have, released
the files.
Here's the thing. My dad was president of the United States, and like the 44 of the 45 people that preceded him, other than Richard Nixon, who left office because of it, he does not and did not direct his attorney general or to the Department of Justice to do anything as it related to any criminal matter for any citizen or individual or anyone inside of the United States. He just didn't, because that was the norm. That was not necessarily written into the Constitution, but that was the way in which we have operated for close to 250 years. That's why he didn't. That's why his administration didn't. That's why his White House counsel didn't, because nobody is doing what Donald Trump is doing, directly the prosecution of people around him. So his followers who came into office having promised their followers, MAGA, on all of the people that cared about this, that they were going to release everything.
That's what I was about to say. Like, why make that promise if you know you're in the files?
Because he knew he was in the files. They didn't know he was in the files because he's full of shit and every second word that comes out of his mouth is a lie. So they don't. And by the way, so Dan Bongino or Bond, whatever, however you say, whatever his name is, and Pam Bondi, and by like Jesus Christ, Pam Bondi was a part of that crowd in South Florida, in Palm Beach, and like all of these people knew each other. All of these people were in the same circles. And I understand that Trump's new thing is you just don't understand Palm Beach in the 90s. What does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? I don't understand Palm Beach in the 90s, but here's what I do understand. I understand that it's really fucking creepy for a grown man to spend as much time as they did around teen girls in your modeling agencies and your Miss Teen contests and your, like, what, commenting on not women, girls' bodies. There's the clip from him with Howard Stern about talking about how the coolest thing about running these modeling contests and pageants was that he could go backstage at any time he want and see all the girls naked. Girls. Just so everybody's hearing me, girls. Under the age of 18 girls. Everybody. And he said, he's on tape. He's on tape. There are, I don't know how many dozens of witnesses of these girls that have come forward anonymously, but some straightforwardly, and said, yeah, he came back. He was really uncomfortable. It was this. And then he has more pictures with Jeffrey Epstein than I have with my grandmother. I mean,
It's just a
I
coincidence.
love my grandmother. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, again, Occam's razor. Okay? And I know that I'm probably using it wrong. So everybody who's listening, you comment in the thing. I swear to God, you know what I mean? Just like go with my definition of it. All right. It's like, what is the most obvious answer to this? And we all know it. And we all know from reporting that Pam Bondi directed over 1,000 FBI agents to go through, I don't know how many terabytes of documents that they have as related to Epstein to excise Donald Trump's name from all of it. We know that's true. So she gets asked about it when she goes before Congress, and she says, I will not discuss this with you, Senator. The reason you're not going to discuss it is because you're the one who directed the FBI or Kash Patel to excise his name from all those documents. We know that the Department of Treasury has hundreds and thousands of financial exchanges. I'm not saying they were necessarily with Donald Trump, but that go back and forth. So we know they could draw the map however they wanted. I don't think that Jeffrey Epstein, he doesn't seem that he was that stupid to keep a little black book or some kind of a list. I think he collected people like other people collect plants. He collected them and he used them in the way that he saw fit. I don't know whether he was Mossad. I don't know whether he was CIA. I don't know whether he worked with the GRU. Seems to me that he worked with whoever gave him the most opportunity to have the most power and to be able to continue to do the things that he did. That's the way that this world works now. I don't think unless you're actually in one of these agencies. And by the way, this kind of idea that there's these all-powerful agencies that do all of these things out there. Sure. You know what? You should be scared of Mossad. Everybody should be. Because I don't want to get on the wrong side of them. You should be scared of the CIA. But more than anything, you should be scared of the NSA. Because if you don't think that they have the capacity to listen to you, even if your phone is off and shove it under a couch, and they do, okay? But the fact of the matter is that I don't think that any of them are stupid enough to actually have like some kind of a written contract with somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, who was clearly a sociopath, who's clearly a pedophile, who was clearly engaged in a pathological need to rape children. And what I think Donald Trump was saying is like, yeah, but everybody in Palm Beach knew about it. So why are you holding against me? Like, why would you hold it against me? And I'm not saying that means that Donald Trump was stupid enough to go to Jeffrey Epstein's house to get a massage. Why would he? He's got Mar-a-Lago. Supposedly the girls came from Mar-a-Lago to begin with, in his own spa, in his own massage rooms. But I'm supposed to sit here with all of that evidence, and that's just literally the tip of the iceberg, unless we want to go through an entire podcast about it, a 4-hour podcast of what's out there. It's not like we didn't. Everyone know this about Donald Trump. You take the E. Jean Carroll case just as one example, but there have been, I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not sure, and I really want to say this, but dozens of women that have come forward and accused Donald Trump of sexually harassing them, at least to use the weakest term that you could use. We know from Donald Trump's own words. I mean, it's not like someone who is, and by the way, he calls it like locker room banter. I don't know if you have any friends. I don't have any friends that have ever said to me, I can just go up and grab him by the pussy. Have you ever met another man? And if you did meet another man that said that to you, would you not turn to them and say, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking when I was speaking with Errol Musk.
Yeah, by the way,
like, what are you saying right now? Because
Yeah.
I mean, at one point he was trying to
but
convince me that it's all right that, like, in some parts of the world, it's okay to like marry people as young as 12.
Exactly.
Like,
Okay. So that's a sociopath. Okay. And so we know that about Donald Trump. His base knows that about him, but they're willing to basically turn a blind eye. Now, I don't know, because they have gotten so ginned up about Epstein being the answer to bringing down all of the quote unquote elites, and Democrats, and all of the people that did fly on the plane, that are that are not MAGA. They'd gotten so wrapped up into that, and so wrapped up into the conspiracy that it's a list, and that it's and that he was a spy, and that he was blackmailing people, and that he was doing all of these things. And there's such a story behind it. I don't know if they have the capacity to let it go, but I don't know. We'll see.
And do you ever get nervous speaking out about these topics so publicly?
No, I think that there's a time in which it is, if you give a shit. Look, man, I don't. I've had to keep my mouth shut for the past few years. Partially because of the prosecution against me, and with the ability for the U.S. federal government to use my words against me, because they're going to have me in front of a judge, or be able to twist them in whatever way that would result in seriously negative consequences for me. But the idea that anything that I'm saying now is going to make me more of a target than I already am to Donald Trump, to MAGA. Look, man. And here's the other thing. Just as a son, as a man, this motherfucker, the way that he talks about my dad, fuck him. And again, sorry for my language.
It's okay.
But he is obsessed. And I tell you the reason why he's obsessed. Because unlike anyone else, my dad kicked his ass like a rented mule and beat him by 7.5 million votes, got more votes than anyone that has ever run for president of the United States of America, and 81 million votes, at higher participation rate than anyone that has ever run for president since 1901. That's why he hates my dad, because he beat him. So he has to literally change history. Everything with them is projection or confession. Biden crime family. What a goddamn joke. What a goddamn joke. I mean, look, people, whatever you think about me, put that all aside. Put it aside. You can think whatever you want about me. You can think that I'm a ne'er-do-well fail son that had been drifting off my dad's coattails and blah, 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 blah. And I took advantage of my name, and the New York Times and everybody, and Ken Vogel, these, no-name, irrelevant, mainstream media bullshit artists. You can think whatever I want, whatever you want about me. But I'll tell you this, is that I didn't take $2.5 billion from the Saudis to cover up the murder of Khashoggi. I did not take a $400 million, nor did my dad, jet from the Qataris for a defense contract. I didn't, and just go down the list. And it's not as if they're hiding it. It is in plain sight. And I see these Trump boys go on who are two complete and utter, like 5'5", just like guys that are think that they're going to go in the octagon because they hang out with UFC
fighters.
UFC fighters. I mean, it just drives me crazy. And I see them, and they say, "Well, we've been in business. We're business people." And Hunter Biden, makes finger paints and things. I'm like, what? Like, you such juvenile, stupid motherfuckers. And again, I gotta stop using the F word.
It's okay. But I mean,
I get myself worked up, but I'm losing an audience here who otherwise go like, God Almighty, that audience being my father.
the reason I
Apologize.
ask about
Yeah.
feeling safe, right? And if you ever worry about your safety, is because we all have been following the story with Charlie Kirk recently, and his assassination. I think it was just over a month ago now. And when you first heard about Charlie Kirk's assassination, what went through your head, and how did you feel about him before it and the kind of content he put out?
Yeah. Okay. I think I like a lot of people, was immediately sent, and I wish whoever sent it to me had not sent it to me, the very, very graphic video that was still up of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Okay. And I don't know how you can be a human being and not feel anything but just enormous empathy, fear, grief, disgust, sadness. To see someone murdered, and he was murdered, no matter what. I don't know whether it was by this kid or whether it was by somebody else or whoever Candace Owens for her podcast ratings is saying it is now, whatever the case may be. And I don't fully, haven't fully followed the investigation other than, what I, see online. And I don't know what to trust online about that. So sadness is the word. That's what I felt. I felt sadness for Charlie Kirk. I felt sadness for his children. I felt sadness for my country. We have become so immune to it as a country. Let me ask you a question. What's the name of the person that attempted to assassinate Donald Trump?
I don't even know.
And you follow things, right?
Very closely, yeah.
I can tell you about Lee Harvey Oswald. I can tell you about Sirhan. I can tell you about Hinckley. I can go through the names of people that have committed awful acts of violence, particularly political violence, in my country and around the world. But we have moved so fast that what would seem like would be a gigantic historical anomaly, a event that changed the course of history in many ways, and we don't even remember the name. And I follow this shit, and like religiously follow this shit. What was the name of the man who went and shot the leader of the Minnesota State Senate? Do you know the name?
No idea.
And her husband and their dog. And had a list of about 30 others that he was going to kill, that he perceived as being anti-MAGA. I don't know.
I also don't know.
So I was sad, and I become sadder and sadder for our country. That at the same day that 4 children, I think, were murdered in a school in Colorado. 2 days after, a young black man in Mississippi was lynched. And they said, oh, maybe it's a suicide. Well, not only that, we're pretty certain now it was not a suicide. His sister was in a fight, had said something about Charlie Kirk, and he ends up strung by his neck from a tree on a college campus. So I'm sad. I am incredibly sad about it all. But I will tell you what, I was moved. I think I was moved to watch his widow forgive Charlie Kirk's killer. So in that vein, I think it is in his death, it is incumbent upon me to forgive Charlie Kirk for having called for the execution of my father for treason.
I was just about to bring that up. I mean, in 2023, during an episode of the Charlie Kirk show, Charlie Kirk said that President Joe Biden should be imprisoned and possibly given the death penalty for crimes against America. The comment drew widespread criticism for being dangerously extreme and contributing to a culture of political hostility and dehumanization.
Here's the only bullshit about what you just read. Widespread criticism. I mean, nobody remembers it. Nobody talked about it in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death. They talked about the things that he said about black and brown people, which they should. He talked about the things that he said about the LGBT community as not being basically less than human. He talked about those things, okay? But the things that he said about me personally, I mean, talking about I'm a drug-addled, bitter, that I'd always be a crack addict, blah 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 blah. I mean, those are insults. I can deal with that. He called for the sitting president of the United States to be executed. Okay, but here's what I will do: I forgive him. I forgive him. I forgive him in his death. But I will tell you this. There is violent speech. It happens. Charlie Kirk was in favor of that, according to him. According to him, he believed in absolute free speech, to be able to say all the hateful things that he said. And by the way, so do I. What I don't agree with Charlie Kirk is that some deaths are necessary for me to have the benefits that are afforded me by the current Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment under Heller and Bruin, the Supreme Court cases. I don't agree with Charlie Kirk about that. And so I am, I think that it is beyond disingenuous, this idea that Charlie Kirk is somehow should be honored as a saint. I can hold two thoughts about the Charlie Kirk situation at the same time, because you know what? I'm a fully formed human, and I can do that. I can say that what Charlie Kirk represented in life, I believe, was hateful. And at the same time, I can say that I'm disgusted by the way in which his life was ended. And in a normal world, we should have the capacity to do that. In a normal world, the idea of putting Charlie Kirk on the $1 bill and erecting a statue for him in Congress, and not seeing that as a direct insult to anyone who had benefited from the civil rights movement and the leadership of Martin Luther King. I mean, I think I can say those things without, or I should be able to say those things without being attacked for being somehow, completely unempathetic or caring or encouraging violence. I mean, as a matter of fact, I know I can, and we all should be able to.
And how do you feel about the way the left and the right have responded to this attack?
Yeah. I don't know how, when you say left and right, I say MAGA, okay? The right, the Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party. There is no such thing as the Republican Party anymore. There's Donald Trump and there's MAGA. No one in the former Republican Party, a member of MAGA, does anything without the express consent of Donald Trump. Nobody. Okay? The left is a collection of completely disorganized, leaderless, disparate groups that have some of the same interest in mind. I mean, one of the things that I want to to try to impress upon people is that it is time that we stop looking beyond party label. We can use the party label for the purposes of being able to gain electoral victories and power, to be able to stem the tide of what has happened so far, and that's the Democratic Party. But the fact of the matter is that we have to point out to your aunt and uncle that it is not in their self-interest to be a supporter of Donald Trump in the country that they have adopted as their own, based simply on the things that I think that if, and I don't know them at all, that I think that they would care about. And what they would care about is, let's just take their own security. Let's take their own security as naturalized citizens. Say they get in say they end up as in a fight with the federal government, whether it's over taxes or whether it's about a piece of property that they own that the federal government wants to use for X, Y, Z, whatever it is. Maybe it's a civil dispute in some way. Maybe it's a business dispute, okay? And they get on the wrong side of Donald Trump. Or basically they get on the wrong side of one of Donald Trump's minions in the county they live in Florida. What do they think about America now, knowing that the way and the only way that they can that they can get the justice that they believe that our a system of government will afford them, their day in court, is gone, is no longer exists. And that's my point. It's not about whether you're a Republican or Democratic conservative, you want to do something about crime in your community or about fentanyl, or whether or not you want to do something about taxes, or you believe that, we're woke or not woke. It's literally about, when your time comes, who's going to protect you? And the one thing that we all had was this. We had an independent judiciary. We had an independent Department of Justice. We had and I'm not saying they always were fair. We had an independent court. That is, they are ripping all of that away. And by the way, in plain sight, with plain language, ripping it all away. And one day, you or someone you love is going to get on the wrong side of that. And it could be something as trite as a bad business deal. You know what I mean? That, you got caught up in. And that you need someone, a neutral arbiter, to be able to come in and afford you some level of justice. What if it's just your neighbor and he's a high-powered person that's connected to Donald Trump, and he wants to cut down the tree on your property? And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's not. These guys have gone to a level and a minutia that is staggering to me already, and it's only been 8 months.
Do you think the conversation should be about turning the temperature down completely on both sides, right? Because from the outside, as soon as something like this happens, people are very quick to blame a side and pick a side, right? But what I haven't seen is people going, we need to look at extremism in general and tone down the temperature.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, Josh. It's not going to happen.
From what I can see, it's just escalating.
Yeah, I'm going to get myself in trouble for saying this. No, we need to turn the temperature up. We need to turn the temperature up, and we need people to see for it for what it is. And what I mean by that is this, is that I do not believe that we are going to get to the bottom until we get to the bottom. And I want to get to the bottom faster rather than through this slow kind of process of just being picked apart, a death by 1,000 cuts here. And when I say that we need to turn the temperature up, I am absolutely 100% not saying that it needs to be violence. But what I mean by turning the temperature up is we need to speak truth to power. We need to be more people in my party, in the Democratic Party, more people in elected positions or in positions of power, or the talking heads that get paid to go on MSNBC. They need to start talking about this as it is, not as a kind of conjecture about whether or not the Supreme Court and this debate, and you have people like Jake Tapper who are having hardball discussions with Donald Trump over text. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, that's not journalism. That's, just complete and utter, abdication of your responsibility as a journalist. And so what we have are the traditional media organizations that go out there and Abby Phillips, who I like on CNN, and she has Scott Jennings there, and she has another Republican there, and okay, like what are you talking about, man? Nothing Scott Jennings says bears any resemblance to truth. Nothing. And he goes out there and he says it just parrots the talking points of the administration, and everybody does that. It has done that in the past, but not when they're parroting what are verifiable lies. And then Abby Phillips will go, "That's just not true, Scott." Look what happened to regardless of the fact that it would only lasted for however many days that it did, to Jimmy Kimmel. Look what happened to what's his name, the other late night host. And you have a media ecosphere that is being gobbled up by oligarchs that are directly benefiting from their relationship and proximity to Donald Trump. They have made promises to him. They have paid him off. They have tried to settle lawsuits that are just absolutely ridiculous in order to be able to appease him. And if we continue to appease him through that process, then there's no stopping him. And by the way, I don't even know if there is any stopping him right now. The question is, what comes next?
Do you think this could be the start of something much darker? And I've never quite seen in America a political commentator like Charlie Kirk get assassinated in the way he was assassinated. You've seen assassinations before of presidents, of hugely influential figures, right?
Yeah.
But I've never really seen a figure like Charlie Kirk be assassinated pretty much purely because of their beliefs.
Wait a second. Okay, let's just step back for a second there. Do you know that that's the case?
No.
Okay, and you know, but here's a really important thing. That is the narrative that is being spun by the right.
I can't think of another one.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Personally,
here I can think of another one. I can think of another one that this kid, if it was this kid, was a graper. And he is a Nick Fuentes acolyte. And Nick Fuentes believes, and the Groypers believe, basically, that everything is a joke and that it should all be chaos, a pox on all their house. They want to create chaos. And so it didn't matter whether you shot Charlie Kirk or whether you shot the Charlie Kirk's equivalent on the left. And I don't know who that would be.
Probably someone like Hassan Piker.
Yeah. So so there's an answer. He wasn't necessarily shot for his beliefs. He was shot because he was one of the loudest people speaking out there. And so that's my point. I don't know whether Charlie Kirk was shot because of what he believed or whether he was shot by a disaffected white male, an incel, that had ready access to high caliber rifle and the capacity to be able to shoot a kill shot from over 200 yards from a roof, and somehow disassemble the rifle before he got off the roof without it being able to seen on video. And then amazingly, after being able to do that, was so dumb that he wrote a full confession over text message to his supposed trans roommate that may have been his boyfriend, exonerating his father and blah, 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 blah. Come on, man. Come on. And so I don't know why Charlie Kirk was shot. Candace Owens says Charlie Kirk was shot because he was about to disavow Israel. Okay? I don't know why Charlie Kirk was shot, but I do know this. It's only served one group of people, Charlie Kirk's death. MAGA. They have taken this, they have wrapped themselves in it, they have righteous indignation, and they are able to say it's all, and by the way, all of the data shows that I think 85% of all political violence has occurred has been initiated by right-wing extremists.
So I actually did research on this the other day because it was part of another podcast that I did, and they say that the majority of these extreme kind of attacks, right, are done by far-right radicals, and a very small percentage is done by the far left.
Yeah.
But the majority are actually people that are kind of just disaffected.
Yeah.
People that have a particular grudge or hatred towards someone or something. Someone that's been like bullied in terms of like the school shootings and stuff like that. So they say the far majority of these attacks are not necessarily politically motivated.
Yeah, I think that that people haven't really come to fully understand it, and I understand why they haven't. I don't think that they pay attention to it and follow it and are affected by it as much as I am on a personal level. Okay, we have a real problem in the United States of America, but also in the world, and you see this through every extremist organization, and not just in our time, but throughout history. Throughout history, and I mean literally going back to, according to some historians, like the Vikings, we have a real problem with disaffected, sexually repressed males. That's what we have a problem with.
People usually
We
call them incels.
Incels now, okay? But in times of crisis and chaos, in which people are told over and over again that there is no authority that you can trust, and that the world is against them, and a age, by the way, in which it is now on steroids with social media and the ability to be able to become connected this way. But the Third Reich was all a bunch of incels. Third Reich was all a bunch of sexually repressed. Look at the Republican Party, okay? And I don't mean this, and I mean that I'm being serious about this. There are and it is not even, it's beyond an open secret in Washington, D.C. There are dozens of closeted gay men in the Republican Party that are anti-trans, anti-LGBT, that are the fiercest MAGA. And I'm not talking just Lindsey Graham, okay? I mean, I'm not talking just Ted Cruz. I'm not just talking about Josh Hawley. I'm not just talking about, but it is a real problem. And I'm not saying that they are the way that they are because they are gay. I'm saying that there is a real problem with disaffected largely white males that are sexually repressed, that are involuntary celibates, which means that they have not found a way to be able to communicate with someone, by the way, of their own sex or of the opposite sex, in order to be able to have a romantic relationship, that are taking their repression out on the rest of the world. Look at Stephen Miller. I go down the list. And by the way, and then go back and read your history. Read your history about Ribbentrop. Read your history about Eichmann. Read your history about Hitler himself. Go back and back and back. And by the way, not only in Germany, but in the United States. Read your history about the director of the FBI, Hoover. These people have a real psychological problem and pathological need to inflict their internal pain on the rest of us, because they haven't come to the terms with who they are or who they know themselves to be, but do not feel as if they can express it in the real world. So they turn to, violent rhetoric and repression of other people and authority over them and control over them. And those are the people that surround Donald Trump. And whether it comes out like his spiritual advisor, who's just arrested for raping a 12-year-old, the president's spiritual advisor. Can you imagine if his priest that he goes to every Sunday was arrested for being a child rapist? But there he is, sitting in pictures with Donald Trump, with the rest of them. And it's a real problem in the United States of America. And it's mixed with religion. And I don't mean just any religion. It's mixed with evangelical Christian community. And so I don't know necessarily how to fix it other than to name it. And that's what I mean by turning up the heat. Turning up the heat is we have to start to talk in ways that normal people can understand, that your aunt and uncle could understand. And I really mean this, is that, like, I would love to be able to sit down with them and just say, here are all the reasons that I think, tell me, why do you think it's worth it? What are you getting out of it right now? What are you getting out of it in terms of the economy right now? Nothing. Unemployment's on the rise for the first time. My dad created more jobs in 4 years than than the last 5 presidents combined. But now, what do? We're not going to have a jobs report anymore. We fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and all the people that are under him, and we're not going to be able. We're not going to produce numbers about the employment rate in the United States of America.
Didn't the government literally just shut down in America due to this?
Yes. Yeah. We literally don't have a functioning government right now. We're not paying our troops. We're not paying the people that are responsible for our flight safety. We're not paying every national park is shut down. Everybody talking about the national park. Forget about the national park. Forget about the entire federal government is not being paid. And now they're saying that they're not going to give them back pay like every other government shutdown that happened. It's insane. It's insane. Our premiums for our health insurance. Okay, so I saw an analysis of it. I'm 55 years old, or will I be? Yeah, I'm 55 years old. I keep thinking of myself as being younger. I was going to say 45, but I can't get away with that anymore. I'm 55 years old.
I think most people feel younger than they are.
Yeah. And Melissa and Bo and I. And we pay, I think, for like the premium plan about $2,000 a month, okay? $2,000 a month, a little over $2,000 a month for the premium Blue Cross plan or Care First, whatever it is in California. It's going to go up to over $8,000 to $9,000 under this new administration. And by the way, that's across the board for everybody. For everybody that was under the ACA, and that because it's not about just people that opted into Obamacare, it's about the entire insurance pool. And once you take out the extensions that my dad put in place, and pieces of the ACA that they can twist around, and the largest cut in Medicaid, which reduces the total number of dollars in the system, then everybody's prices are going to go up. You tell me a normal family of a average age of 50 with one still dependent child that is going to be able to afford a 4 to 5 times increase in healthcare costs that will result in millions of dollars when people are living paycheck to paycheck. The vast majority of people are living paycheck to paycheck, in which they just have enough money to be able to make sure they pay their health care, they pay their car insurance, they pay their home insurance, they pay their mortgage, they pay the grocery bill, so on and so forth. And at the end of the month, they maybe just have enough money to be able to, go out to dinner, go out to dinner a couple of times and be able to get their whatever drink that they want at Starbucks. The price of coffee had just went up is over 25% in the United States of America. And people think, oh, you know what I mean? Well, you know what? People feel that in their pocketbook when they go into the coffee shop and they're paying 40 to 50% more for for whatever coffee drink that they get. And we all do that. And it's going to hit. It is going to hit. And it is completely self-inflicted. Whether that changes anything, I don't know.
You mentioned Candace Owens earlier, right? And after Charlie Kirk's assassination, Candace Owens began promoting theories that he was under pressure for his views on Israel, even releasing leaked messages showing he'd lost a $2 million donor after refusing to cancel Tucker Carlson, and saying that he felt pressured by some Jewish donors to change his stance on Israel. She suggested those pressures could have played a role in what happened to him. And what do you make of that narrative? Do you think it's absolute nonsense? And why, every time something like this happens, does Candace Owens seem to have a conspiracy theory or an altering narrative?
Yeah, because it pays. Pays. That's the reason why Candace Owens does it. And like every one of these people is that, like all great conspiracy theories, is that there is a kernel of truth. There is. I can't know the authenticity of that text message. Supposedly it was independently verified by the person on the other side of it or something like that. I don't know. There is a truth to the fact that Charlie Kirk was very, very frustrated with Israel and what they were doing in Gaza, and how it was becoming a point of real contention within his constituency in the Turning Point community in MAGA, and the ability to continue to defend somehow the Israeli government, not the Israeli people, and what they were doing. And so there's like this, there's like this thread of truth, and and so, but here's where I am. I need to see evidence to be able to make the leap. Is to make the leap from that being true to Mossad murdered Charlie Kirk. I mean, like, there is no such thing as responsible journalism anymore. In any way, and in terms of the mainstream, and then in your ecosystem, it is it's like the wild fucking west, and I can land on your page, and you can do deep dive analysis into it, and you can have journalistic ethics in terms of the way in which some of the things that you reported or did not report. Like the things that you did not say in that whole expose
about Errol
Musk.
And which we chose to leave out for very specific reasons. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We wanted to tell the story in a way that would get the point across and get the message and the victim's story across without unnecessarily exposing everyone else.
Without necessarily hurting people or sensationalizing it or doing what, by the way, I'll tell you though, it would have gotten you more clicks if you did it. And so, but in your ecosphere of what you do behind that microphone is that, you're all left to make that choice yourself. You do not have this, like these editors, that we think that the mainstream or whatever is the mainstream, the irrelevant mainstream continues to have. But as it relates to Candace Owens, is that that's what she does. Is that she makes those leaps. She takes those kernel of truths. That's the thing. That's what she's been doing about the Epstein files from the beginning, but making the leap in the way that she wanted to. Now it's I don't know where she stands on that. I think that she is frustrated and has probably generally held beliefs. But it's like what she did with the First Lady of France.
Bridget Macron.
Yeah, and what an ugly thing. You know what I mean? Like to continue to go on doing it, and now some woman, in order for her to stop and to shut up and not to continue to make those aspersions against her, has to literally like reveal her genitalia to a courtroom in order to be able to prove to some idiot that's sitting behind a microphone in the United States of America that she's a woman and not a man, as if it's any of their business, no matter what.
And I mean, just for context, Candace Owens has accused her of being a man.
Yeah. I thought yes, exactly.
For people that haven't.
I mean, how silly. But you know what? All it does is put more money in Candace Owens' pocket. And I don't know Candace Owens. I mean, I've watched what she said. I guess she's the kind of the center of gravity in that MAGA or MAGA adjacent ecosphere online right now. But we'll see. I mean, she called me after I did my Andrew Callahan podcast and wanted me to come on to her podcast. And I mean, and I know why, is because I said some things about Democrats that I authentically felt, and she probably wanted to press me to do that more. Well, I don't know why. Maybe it was a genuine. She wanted to hear what I had to say, but it's all about money. I mean, she's sitting here talking about it. I mean, it's about money because you and I are talking about Candace Owens, because everybody in that ecosphere is talking about Candace Owens. What's she going to say next? What link is she going to, who's she going to accuse next? I mean, she like.
And for me, when I watch it, I understand questioning narratives, right? But to the extent that she's going, and a lot of people online are going, it creates so much confusion and distrust, and people should be skeptical. Even someone like me, who I think I'm pretty level-headed and I can look at different opinions and different facts and kind of, make up my own mind on things. I go, is she onto something? And then it's like, you do not know who to trust anymore.
Have you ever listened to Nick Fuentes?
I know all about Nick Fuentes, yes.
Have you listened to him?
Not much, no. I've seen him do interviews and stuff like that, but I can't listen to that kind of stuff.
No, but you got to. And here's why. Because I promise you sit and you kind of go, that makes sense. Until he goes off the rails and says basically, yeah, I'm a Nazi. You know what I mean? But for real.
But I mean, apparently he didn't like Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk wasn't far right enough. I mean, he's
but
on the
by
very
way,
extreme end of
one of the
things.
reasons I think one of the most significant breaks as it relates to Charlie Kirk was that Charlie Kirk thinks that they're all a bunch of hypocrites, that they believe the same things that he believes, that they believe in a Christo-fascist state. They believe in the supremacy of the majority white population in the United States of America.
But they just won't say it.
And that they won't say it, okay? And what he also believed and was as he is an avowed anti-Semite, but he said that it is not the reason why he is so opposed to what was happening in Israel. Okay, and so that is, but before he gets to what is clearly his avowed racism, you listen to how he appeals to the people that I was talking about. These people, these young, it's almost exclusively young to middle-aged white men who are disaffected and need someone else to blame. It is nihilistic populism. It's like we've been left behind. The people that he's appealing to and that he's so angry for these, what he calls pretenders, he's so angry at the fact that, they make fun of and he says it flat out, they make fun of the kid sitting in his basement talking into the microphone and direct messaging their only friends over whatever video game that they're playing, angry at the world that they have been left with. And he said, and that's me. You're talking about me. The kid sitting in the Midwest that is that looks out there and thinks that the entirety of the system is rigged. And that's who he's appealing to.
I have empathy for people like that too.
I say it with empathy, but I think that we got to get real, man. It's a problem. That's the true enemy within. Now, can you reach these people? I don't know. Have these people always existed? Yeah, to a certain degree. They're more the characterizations of them are more publicly available to us now because of social media and the internet. But these are the same people that flourished in the Jim Crow South, in Reconstruction, United States of America.
Yeah,
they're the same people that were putting on hoods and and going into all male clubs and plotting how many black people they could lynch in this week. Those are the same people.
I do think it's always existed, but I also think that the problem in terms of incels is worse now than it has ever been before because of social media. And you see, for example, like Twitch streamers, right?
Yeah.
Where they stream for hours and hours a day.
Yeah.
And they've got these massive followings and there's these huge echo chambers where everyone is kind of on the same page within these communities.
Yeah.
And you feel like you have a community from your bedroom.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go speak to people outside of that community. You're hearing everything you want right there, from your favorite commentator or from the people in the chat. And that's just one example, right? But people, I think, have never been so lonely, so angry at establishment and the people in charge. You are constantly seeing every version of what your life could be like on social media. And I'm also, fall victim to a certain extent of these things. In my dark times, I was telling you I was an addict and I'm sitting at home and I feel like I have nothing to live for. What am I doing here? And you feel like you can't get out of it. And these days, I really believe that it is so, even with all of the help that people have, right? And there's rooms, there's people you can speak to. I really believe it's so difficult to climb out of that pit because you are constantly being reinforced by these communities and by these echo chambers.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. And I don't have any answer for it. I think that not to be flippant, but there's a really interesting historical take on this. Is that well, that literally, like, the Vikings were incels. And I mean, go read about it, because I won't explain it well enough.
They spend months
But-
alone.
Yeah, but
with just
no,
men.
but they left. The men that left to go on those journeys to do that were the men that were unable to find mates, that were not integrated into the community. They're always kind of these outsiders, and they choose
Brotherhood.
yeah, they choose violence, and they choose aggression. And I know that sounds a little bit silly of a stretch to make, but I don't think the problem is new. I think that it is so exposed, and like everything in our time of being alive, which is incredibly exciting but also incredibly frightening, is it progresses at an exponential rate. Kind of like Moore's law applies to everything that we're experiencing right now. And so what I see is for instance, like you say, it's never been like this before. There's an entire global jihadi movement that's based on this. That's based on connecting these young men that blew up 2 towers in the United States of America and crashed 4 planes. There is an entire government that is suppressing an entire population in Afghanistan called the Taliban that expresses exactly the things and the sentiments that you just said, in which you find acceptance into a loosely connected group of people with one singular interest: to give you meaning, to give your life meaning. And it's interesting, and it's one of the other things that I keep coming back to, because we have, and you talk about this openly, a shared, a common, like, by the way, you, me, and about 1/3 of the population experience with addiction and recovery. In which, what is the one thing that is the most important thing in recovery? Is connection. People are desperately trying to find connection. And so when I talked about that kind of like feedback loop that the media, which I look, I put so much of this on the corporate class, our oligarch overlords, like, whether it's Zuckerberg or whether it's Musk or whether it's, in which, they've provided us with an enormous amount of incredible tools in which we are able to, that our lives have gotten better.
Stay connected.
They stay connected.
Yeah. See parts of the world you would never have seen before.
But in doing so, they need to divide us, because it increases the algorithms. Let me give you an example. As we know for certain that Facebook, we had a whistleblower that came in to Congress and the last administration, and with everything, with all the data, with all of the documents that showed that Facebook knew the algorithm that they were feeding to young girls in the United States of America was exponentially increasing the risk of suicide among them, and that there was an epidemic of suicide among teenage girls.
And body dysmorphia.
Yeah, body dysmorphia, but just let's take the most ultimate final one, suicide, okay? And they knew that it was doing it, and they knew that it was at epidemic levels, okay? But they were making money. So not only did they do nothing about it, they attacked the whistleblower, they were exposed for it, they denied it, they ignored it, they put out an alternate narrative about it. And what did we do? Nothing. Do you remember those hearings that happened 2 years ago? Any result? Did anybody do anything
Nothing.
about it?
Mm-mm.
And so we are being turned against each other and turned against ourselves even.
Mm.
We are being trained to hate ourselves. And we know it. We absolutely know it. It's not a question. But you know what? I'm still going to go on TikTok today. And I'm still going to get fed my For You page.
It's like this
Then
rabbit
my
hole that we
algorithm.
just cannot seem to suck ourselves out
And
of.
now that by the way,
Yeah.
the crazy part is that I'm more scared of it now that it's owned by a American oligarch connected to Trump than I am that being owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Mm.
And so here we are. We know that we're doing this to ourselves. How do we pull ourselves out of it? I am like getting way far afield from recovery politics.
Yeah, because I would actually
negative.
love to speak to you about recovering.
But there is we are about to enter a period of time that, without exaggerating in any way, in my opinion, is unlike any other time in human history. We are about to reach AGI, and we are about, and then within maybe months, some people say, and at a year, 2 years of reaching superintelligence. And the ability for people to comprehend what that means is beyond anything anyone can imagine. Even the people that have studied this in their entire lives say. But we are in for a rough ride. And I'm not just talking about jobs. I'm talking about we are about to make an evolutionary leap that has never happened in the history of our species.
Mm.
And what does that mean for all of us? I don't know. But I will tell you this. The people that are both benefiting from it, the lead up to it, and the people that are in power and picking winners and losers in that are literally the exact wrong people to have in place at this time.
Mm.
So we better collectively wake up and hold people like Mark Zuckerberg responsible for what he's doing. But how do we do that in this administration? I believe the only way that we as a nation of the United States of America, or just as human citizens in this global environment, is we have to be willing to turn off the machine. We have to be willing to go on an economic blackout. We have to be willing to do by the way, what does it cost you or me as an American citizen is to collectively, however many, even if only 5% of us participate in it, is to go on an economic blackout for a day period of time.
I mean, I could do it, but
I know, but like
I think a lot of people
or literally,
couldn't.
if you want to send a message to Jeff Bezos, who, by the way, is I don't think Jeff Bezos is a bad guy, but send a message to Jeff Bezos to use his power to do some actual good and to push back. And don't use Amazon for a week. If 5% of if 3% of his regular customers participated in a blackout for a day, 2 days, things would change. That's what happened with Disney. That's what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. They lost 2.4 million subscribers in like a 2-day period of time. They didn't get a conscience. They didn't even come close to getting a conscience. It hit their pocketbook. And by the way, you saw the affiliates came back. Nobody from the administration is holding, is saying, "Oh, goddamn Disney," because they understand that. Bottom line, money, and we have to be able. That's where I think our power lies. Now we can talk about recovery.
Hey everyone, a quick thank you to this week's sponsor, Odoo. Running a business often means juggling tools from accounting, sales, HR, and inventory. Odoo brings everything together in one place so you can manage it all from a single platform. It's like your smartphone, different apps that all work seamlessly together. With Odoo, you pick the business apps you need, from accounting to HR, and they all connect effortlessly. No more jumping between systems or wasting time with scattered software. Your purchases connect to your inventory connects to your sales connects to your accounting, and so forth, with HR, marketing, and productivity. And the best part, your first Odoo app is free for life. Start with whichever one you need most, then add more as your business grows. Odoo seems like the future, and I'm really glad we can all be a part of it. I've got a link for you in my description to get started for free or book a free meeting with an Odoo expert. Try it out for yourself. Your business will thank you. Now back to the episode. When was the first time you tried substances of any kind, really?
Yeah. Okay, so I do it this way, and sometimes I say this, and then I've recognized on other things is that I'm speaking like I'm speaking in a recovery community, people that are understanding my language and why I'm saying things. So I had my first drink, and when I say I had my first drink, it's the first time that I was affected by a drug, by alcohol. And it had the neurological, physical effect, the physiological effect of alcohol in my body, and it literally was just from being 8 years old at a big adult party, me and my brother running around, and I grabbed a champagne flute, not knowing what I was doing. Everybody else was, drinking, and it wasn't like some raucous party, but it was people had champagne, and I drank the bubbly thing, and I remember distinctly thinking at 8 years old that this is the greatest thing ever. Until I then, my aunt came and found me underneath the table and took me up and put me to bed. You know what I mean? And I didn't drink again. But as you know, in recovery, and I've been to literally 9 rehabs. So
I've been to a few myself as well. Yeah.
I'm a pro. And, I haven't had a drink or a drug in 6 years, and I'm incredibly proud about that. Over 6 years now. And I went for a 10-year stretch, but I am, we can get to why I feel a humble confidence in where I am today. But in recovery, what we're instructed to do is to go back in our memory and think of what was that, and that's the one that I distinctly remember. And then I, but the reason I remember it is the same reason that you just went through. Is I had anxiety as a kid, and I don't know whether it was the trauma of the death of my mother and my sister in a car accident my brother and I were both in, or because I had a beautiful life, other than that incident. And when I say other than that, it's but I always kind of felt out of place. What we said, I felt alone in the crowd, and I was always a little bit shy. And I was definitely the sensitive one. And I, always wanted to make my art rather than, go to the birthday party. And I had friends, but, my friends was the kid that, had cystic fibrosis that couldn't go out for recess. So I hung with him and we played with army men. You know what I mean? That was me. And you know what? And I didn't like to dance. You know what I mean? All the adults would dance. My brother would
I've always been terrified of
dancing. I was terrified to go out and dance. But I tell you what, when I took that sip of the champagne, I was on the dance floor with my brother and acting like a fool and not caring about it at all. And it felt incredibly liberating because then I was apart. I felt connection. Connection in a way that I wasn't fully feeling connected for whatever reason. And we all exhibit that, and I think that's something that so many people can relate to. But if you can't relate to that, it makes addiction very hard to explain to other people.
Yeah, I mean, my family is like a perfect example, right? Because there's quite a lot of people that suffer from addiction in my family, and my dad is someone who is very straight edge.
Yeah.
He is probably very similar to your dad. In a way, he's always done the right thing. He always works as hard as he can to provide for his family.
Yeah.
Doesn't touch alcohol, really. I mean, he might have a sip every now and again. But he's a very straight edge guy. And when he saw what I was suffering with, he couldn't quite relate to it,
Yeah.
And especially from a young age, I think as a parent, you go, oh, my son is just experimenting. They're just having fun. This is normal for kids to do. But as we all know as addicts, right? And if you're not an addict, you wouldn't know. But it usually starts with fun, socializing, connection. And then it soon, like very quickly spirals into a very dark, thing where for me, I was spending days on end in a bedroom alone. I was looking for any way I could to get a fix. And I mean, one of the things I always...
What was your drug of choice?
So I did quite a lot of different things. My main one was cocaine, but I did a lot of benzos.
Yeah.
I don't usually like saying this, but I tried heroin on a trip to Cambodia for 3 weeks straight and ended up going to rehab and dropping out.
Thank you for saying it, because I'm a fucking crack addict. You know what I mean? And I'm one worse than you, but not that you were addicted to heroin. But I was a trash can also. Whatever in front of me. But I think it's important that. By the way, for real, just stop for 1 second.
Sorry. Yeah.
I think it's really important. What we just did is your transparency. The reason you don't want to say it is probably because you don't want your aunt and uncle to know that you tried heroin.
My family knows.
Okay, well, but I mean that in the general sense. You don't want your next girlfriend to go back and look and say, well, was it intravenous or was it this or what? How did you do this and this? And because people's reaction is just like, oh my God,
they look at you differently.
Heroin, crack, and I'm not saying that you need to normalize the use of heroin or crack. What I am trying to say is that you need to be able to be honest about it in order for you to ever get over it. I'm not saying you. I mean, that's the one gift that they had given me, is that transparency. So you locked in your room, and not necessarily locked in your room.
I literally locked myself in my room. One of the things I do is I have an obsession with press stick, and I play with it constantly all the time. And I mean, even if you look at my hands, I've got like press stick residue on my hands. I use it as like a stress ball, and I would literally lock myself in my room with that press stick ball. I had maybe like a 10-kilo ball, put it on the wood floors against the door because my locks were all broken. So I would literally barricade myself in my room with my press stick ball. But I mean, I kind of tried everything, and when I went to Cambodia and had that experience for several weeks, I came back home and I dropped out of school, and it completely took over my life to the point where I always tell people this story that I would steal from my parents so much, right? And it's something that I'm incredibly ashamed of. But I turned my parents against each other to the point where I would keep getting money from my mom, and I wouldn't just ask her, I would take it. And when she found out, I would manipulate her into, not telling my dad. So there was already like a divide caused there. But it got to the point where I was so obsessed with getting high that the one night I remember I had looked over the entire house for my mom's wallet or purse. She would hide it, so that I couldn't find it. And it got to this point where I had so obsessively looked through the house for her purse that I came to the conclusion that the only place it could be was under her pillow. I was crawling around their room, like 2 a.m, pitch black, like trying to keep quiet, to my mom's side of the bed, put my hand under her pillow without her knowing, and took her purse out from beneath her head.
Have it under her pillow.
It was under her pillow. That's how bad it got, and how much I had done this, because I knew every hiding place. I knew every spot of the house. And it got to the point where I came to the conclusion that the only place it could be is under her pillow. And I went, put my hand under her pillow, took it out. And as I took it out, she did wake up. But I just said I left my charge here. So I forgot what I said exactly. But that's kind of the point it got to, right? And from what I've read, your addiction was, and I don't like to say far worse, right? Because everyone has their rock bottoms. Everyone has their breaking points. But from what I've read, your addiction was on another level. And I honestly don't know how mentally you could take it, because for me, I got, clean relatively early. And I just couldn't do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
For you, it spanned such a long period of time, and it's such an intensity. I mean, I heard you spent like 13 days without sleep, just doing crack and drinking vodka.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you manage that? And how do you handle that? And the other thing is I had such extreme paranoia with your family being so visible. and you being so visible, maybe less so back then, right? But how did you cope with that? Like, and what was your breaking point?
You know, I'm still thinking about that story you told, and how heartbreaking. Makes me want to cry for you. You know, it makes me want to cry for your mom. And I met your brother before I came in here. It makes me want to cry for your brother. Thank you for sharing that. And when you say my addiction, you know, much worse, is it? I can't think of anything worse than that. Is losing the trust of the people that love you, and just heartbreaking, you know. And thank God that, you know, I mean, here you are, and here you are with the relationship, and the power of forgiveness is real and amazing, and but it takes a long time, right, man, to rebuild that. And I don't know how I survived other than that, is that love. And I don't know exactly what your experience is, but I do know this about addiction, is that it is universal. It is not just our problem. It is the problem that everyone that comes into the orbit of an addict. And it is, at least in the United States, about at any given time, you know, at least, I don't know, it's like up to 30% of the country is in some form of active addiction. And sorry, your story just, I mean, in a good way. Thank you for sharing that. Because that's the thing that is keeping me alive. And reminding me every day of the choice that I have to make. I can be that scared, desperate kid that is willing to, you know, scare the literal life out of his mother and steal her wallet from under her head. And so I am. I don't know how I survived, other than this: is that addicts are incredibly resourceful. We are an incredibly resourceful people. I mean, my ability to seek out drugs wherever I was, I mean, like, in my story alone, me as an addict, my ability to use my deductive reasoning and and resilience and absolute stamina and to continue to feed my habit amazes me even to this day. I mean, it is the level of creativity that you have to come up with in order to be able to hide it, to get it, to recover from it, to start all over again. I mean, it is it's like 6 full-time jobs at the same time.
To hide it, to manipulate.
Yeah, while juggling and, through a police office. I mean, it is, literally. And hopefully, hopefully in recovery, and I always tell addicts that I talk to in recovery, you maintain some of those skills. You get to keep some of the things that you learned that in an awful, awful way. Okay, one of them being persistence. Okay, and all I know is this: one day, I made a decision, and in making that decision, I shifted my brain chemistry just enough to make it to the next day. Is that a miracle? I think it is. But whatever you want to call it, I chose to believe that there was another life. And I chose to believe that I wasn't alone in having to do it. I chose to believe that there was a connection beyond just the physical, personal connection of the people around me, but there was a connection, not just to a particular God, but to a universal power, or whatever you want to call it, that connects us all. And for a moment, I made that decision. And I didn't articulate all of those things necessarily myself, but I made a decision that I choose life. I choose connection. And I choose life, not just my own, but life. And whatever came next. And it allowed me just to make it to the next day. And I had to make that decision again when I woke up. And what addiction does to you, and you know this, and I don't think many people do understand this, though. And this is what I tell to all of the people that have never experienced a full-blown addiction in the way. When I mean full-blown, they're addicted to something else. They're addicted to the dopamine rush that they get from their TikTok page. They're addicted to their pornography. They're addicted to their coffee. They're addicted. And those are ways in which you can live with an addiction without it ruining your life. But I explained it this way, is that what we did with drugs is we completely ruined our neurological system to the degree that it became our worst enemy. So our brains were literally rewired to need dopamine to feel like we weren't going to die. Not feel okay, not get high, but that we weren't going to die. Because the only thing that we are taught to trust is our own thinking, right? And my thinking was telling me, because I was neurologically, physiologically programmed by the use of those drugs to say, if you don't get your alcohol, if you don't get your stimulant, you're going to die. So go get it. And then all of your primal instinct kick in to be able to do that. And it becomes this vicious loop. And many of us die. It can never come out of it. Some of us end up in prison. Some of us end up with the reprieve that I've been given today, that you've been given today. But every time I relapsed, every time I made that decision, I now know is that was a divine intervention. And again, I'm not getting into religion. This isn't about religion. It's just, but some kind of an intervention is and inside of me, whatever it was. And I take great pride in that. So one side of me that just continued to want to, that said, you don't have to do this. Something beyond my brain. Something much deeper and more human than the neurons and the synapses that occur in my brain that tell me how to live and walk and eat and who to love and who to trust and who not to trust. There's something far, far, far deeper that would go, you have to stop.
And I think we all have that feeling, that in active, it's just like, what you're doing is destroying yourself.
Where's it coming from? Because it's not from your brain.
Destroying everyone around you. But you just cannot seem to pull back. And I mean, when I was like in the peak of my addiction, right?
Yeah.
I was getting arrested. I mean, there was a time where I got arrested like literally a few months apart. I had several car accidents. And you look at these things and in active addiction, you go like, why these things keep happening to me, right? But the one thing that really took me back was watching the way it affected everyone around me and especially, my parents. Because no matter what I did, and I did a lot to them, they were always by my side. They were always there to help. And no matter what, they didn't give up on me. And I go, if they can watch this from, their perspective and stand by my side after everything I've done, surely I can, not just for them, for myself too, but surely I can give this other way of life a go. And they always say in, the rooms and in recovery that if you try this life and it doesn't work out and things don't change and you don't feel better after a year, go back to active addiction, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I took that step, and it was an incredibly hard step, it was not, I mean,
I remember when I finally kind of decided to give this a real go, I went to treatment for 6 months. And during that time, I completely lost contact with every single friend I had pretty much ever made. And that was a conscious decision. You know, I went, I really need to radically change the way I'm living my life. And they weren't bad people. I've connected with a lot of them since then. But I needed to do the hardest thing, which was start my life over again. And I thought, rather now than later, you know?
Yeah.
And through that decision, my life has changed so dramatically. And the value of life that I have and that my family has today is just, I really didn't believe that. Like, I would never believe I'm sitting here with you right now. You know what I mean? Like, when I got out of all of this, I started the podcast. I started, you know, doing all of the things I loved again because I completely lost all of that. And to see the way my life has shifted so much in these past few years is just absolutely incredible.
How long you got?
So I was, and this, it's also a complicated discussion, and we did talk about this, but I was completely sober for 4 years.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I decided to start smoking weed again. And I started to keep these things more private just because...
Yeah, because everybody has an opinion about
everyone has an opinion. And I think I've made the wrong decision, to be honest. I look at the way weed has affected my life, and while it hasn't been in a dramatic way, it hasn't benefited me whatsoever, and it hasn't improved my life.
Yeah.
But just looking back, I think the thing that really has changed the most is just the relationships I have, the quality of those relationships. And I mean, I remember one of the biggest turning points for me was my brother just looking at me one day after I had done something really messed up, and he just went, "What is wrong with you?" Like, he didn't recognize who I was.
Yeah.
I mean, you've spoken about your family and that time of your life, right?
Yeah.
When you were going through this, what kind of conversations were going on with your dad, your other family members?
Yeah.
I mean, did they stand by your side the whole time?
Yeah, that's my entire story. And what I try to tell everyone is that experiencing someone with addiction in their own family that can't understand it and doesn't know what to do. You know, I mean, the most common, I think, in the rehab world, the most common advice is you just gotta let them hit bottom. You just gotta let it hit bottom. You gotta come up. And I think that's total bullshit. You know, people will hit their own bottom regardless of how hard you try or what you do. What people confuse letting people hit bottom with is disconnecting. And the one thing that I tell everyone, unless it's dangerous to you, I mean, literally, like physically dangerous to you, or so emotionally so emotionally damaging to you, that never disconnect from an addict, is always try to maintain the connection. Because the one thing that saved me was the exact thing that you just talked about, is your parents just never let you go. And sounds like your brother too. As much as he's like, "What's wrong with you?" He never, he was still there to go get you at the police station, and he was still there to like yell at you and say you're a goddamn idiot. And he was still there to like call you on your bullshit when you weren't even listening. And that's because he's your brother. Mm. And your parents loved you, and you had a obviously healthy relationship with them, even though it had turned toxic for them, not you.
There was still a lot of love there, and I remember.
No, I know, but like you're reaching on your. I mean, like that is a, you know, the thing that I still, and that made me like, I could felt that story in my heart, is like what we do to the people that we love the most, and how they still sit with it. You know, 4 years is a long time, man. 6 years is not a long time, and you know those things are really hard to go away. The notion that they still love and trust us and treat us and want us there and want us at the table and want us at the party and want us to to call them every day, is what a testament to love. And that's the one thing that I would say is the one thing that saved me was that when I was ready to make that decision and Melissa was there in my life at that time, I knew that my daughters were still there, that they never disconnected. They never said, I don't ever want to speak to you again, Dad. All they kept saying is, please call, Dad. Please call. Because that's what I did. I left. I just absented myself from everybody's life. My dad called me every day, still does, every day. And I didn't answer the call for weeks at a time. And I think about how I did that. And I think if one of my daughters did that to me,
You don't know how you would
I don't
handle
know
it.
how, I mean, I do know how it would kill me, kill me. I mean, my girls sometimes don't answer the phone for, a day or respond to the text because they're pains in my ass. But like thinking that they're out there in pain, in danger, in whatever situation that all of those situations that they knew that I would some way or another putting myself in. It's just amazing how much that this disease is it's wholly a family disease. And I think a lot of kind of like, people in the rehab community that, they say that and they don't really understand what they're talking about, or they don't, it means that you have to put, your family above. It's not that at all. It's that, you have to get honest with you. Like you just did. You shouldn't be smoking pot. You know you shouldn't be.
I know.
We wouldn't be having the discussion if you knew this.
Yeah.
But you know what? I love you. Your parents still love you. You know what I mean? You learn. Figure it out. Because we just talked about it. But what happens is when you don't talk about it. They gave me an incredible gift. Talking about all that scrutiny and all of the, Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani and
Tucker Carlson
and everybody that likes to make fun of me for my addiction. And, Tucker doesn't drink. I know why Tucker doesn't drink. And all I know is this, is that what they gave me was an end to the lies. And I'm not talking about 90% of their lies about me. I'm just talking about the one, which was that I was an addict. And I wasn't just a drug user. I was a crack addict. And that's why I'm so intent upon telling everybody that, is because not that I'm proud of it. It's because I need you to know everything about me, because I'm not just keeping a secret at the dinner table when I sit down in your house and meet your parents. It's not like, yeah, Hunter's in recovery too. Oh, what, drank too much beer? No, I was a goddamn crack addict. I spent weeks on end in motels with really, really unsavory people doing really unsavory things. Yeah, that was me. And you know what? You can't embarrass me by it anymore. You can't make that secret turn into a resentment with me. You can't make that secret turn into shame that I'm only one way as an addict that my brain is going to tell me that I can smooth over, and that's with a drink or a drug. That doesn't exist in my life anymore. And God, am I grateful for it. And so that's what I tell to everybody that's in recovery, that's kind of like still testing the boundaries and trying to figure it out, is that radical honesty is our lifeblood. And I stayed sober for 7 years. I first got sober in 2003, and then a drinking problem, and it was just a problem then. It wasn't like I stayed sober for a long time, but I didn't get fully honest. I didn't get fully honest about everything. I feel more grateful today than I've ever felt in my life with everything that's happened to me. Even with everything that happened, despite everything that's happened to me, is because I am more true to myself than I've ever been in my life. And I figured it out. And I figured it out at the age of 49 or 50 when I 49 when I first got clean. But it's taken me, and I still feel like I'm learning. And it's a beautiful thing.
It's one of the reasons I'm so honest about these things, even though
You don't
sometimes
always
I
wanna
feel
be.
like I shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Look, I have conversations with people and people come up to me that watch the show and
Yeah.
they go, "Thank you for speaking about it."
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm unique in that way. A lot of people speak about,
Yeah.
addiction, but I really do believe that the more you are honest, the more people will connect with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you say people are going through, but they don't have someone necessarily to talk to or someone to look up to,
Yeah.
in that kind of space. And I just feel like by being honest, it lets other people know that it's okay to admit that you have a problem or you need help.
Yeah, and I find that I've been put in the unique position of being the by nothing that I've done, but the son of the former president of the United States, and here I am, and I was a crack addict. You can make fun of me, and you can say that you can treat it the same way that Don Jr. does or Eric, but you know what? The I find it like I take great pride in that. I take great pride in the fact that how many, just like you said, and you have your ability to speak to people through your podcast, but through the way that I've spoken to publicly about it. You know what? I've had the privilege of being able to talk to other people that are still sick and suffering that have come up to me and said, "Thank you, thank you," and it's a completely selfish thing on my part because it keeps me clean and sober. It keeps me grateful. It connects me, and I think that's one of the greatest lessons that that everybody could take from the 12 steps. Is this, regardless of what you think about AA, regardless of what you think about the program, regardless of what you think about any of that, there's a whole point to getting to the end, and when you get to the end, the thing that keeps you clean and sober and on the straight and narrow and connected is service. Is being of service to another.
Mm.
And the way in which we're taught as people in recovery is to maintain and be of service to others is in your immediate community of people that are out there that are still sick and suffering and that are alcoholics and addicts. And by the way, there's no difference. Alcohol is the most dangerous drug. in the
I
world.
believe
But
so too. Yeah.
And so to me, they can make fun of me all they want. Elon can, say whatever the hell he wants. And I that's when you asked me before whether or not, I become numb to it. But you know what? And to a certain degree, I become, I'm appreciative of it. Like, yeah, keep it up, man. It's my superpower. My superpower as having gone to hell and come back. And nothing you say.
Mm.
And every experience now, because you have forced it on me. Thank you. Because I got to be of service.
And I mean, so much of what you've gone through has been in your recovery. I mean, when I got sober, when I got clean,
Yeah.
I didn't really have anything challenge my sobriety, right? I didn't have to go through a death of a loved one. I didn't have to go through an extreme controversy.
Yeah.
And I mean, looking over the past 5 or 6 years of your life, it's just been full of controversy and attack. And I mean, one of the biggest things was, the Hunter Biden laptop, which is not actually a laptop, it's a hard drive, right?
Yeah. I don't even know if it's a hard drive. It's an amalgamation of a bunch of shit. Yeah, but yeah.
But
Yeah.
you've been tested so much, right, over the past few years. And in terms of the laptop story, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much everything that you didn't want the world to see came out.
Yeah.
And it showed you in your darkest time.
Yeah.
Or some of the darkest times of your life.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like when all of that information was released to the public? And how do you feel about the way it was released?
Yeah. It's interesting. And I look, we could do again an entire podcast of the laptop as a the operation or you know what I mean? And you know what, I'm sick of where'd it come from, who'd it come from, the different sources, the hacks, the leaks, the
I'm more interested in
fabrications.
how it impacted you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, is this. At first, it was awful. Okay? There was nothing, even in the data as manipulated and stolen or whatever it was that they took my entire digital footprint for 20 years. There's not a single thing that was evidence of any crime other than the crimes of moral turpitude as it relates to drug use. And, that's it. And the ensuing insanity that happens along with drug use. Lots of sex and consensual sex. And, here's what I think about that, is that when it happened, it was like, I mean, I don't have to explain it to anybody. Okay, I want you to close your eyes and imagine that, every any of the pictures that you've ever taken, and we've all taken, and but some more than others and some not. That, think about that, those being released to the entire world over and over and over and over again. But just think on that first day of waking up and seeing a naked picture of you smoking crack in a bathtub in a motel room with a woman, naked standing behind you, and then open up the page and see, 40 other stolen images, along those lines, with a running commentary of the depravity and this and crackhead. It wasn't easy, man. It wasn't easy, but it was amazing at the same time. Is the day that the story broke, I went to bed, or almost to bed, and I'm trying to go to sleep. Bo was about 6 months old. It was just me and Melissa, and I fell asleep enough, and then Bowie woke up, for a bottle, and I got up with him, and we lived downstairs in this apartment that we were living in. So we were in the basement kind of room, but it had like a open back. And I went upstairs to the kitchen. It's on the first floor, and the sun was rising, and I had this little baby in my arms, and he's being like so cute, and we had the beautiful experience of having not being with him by necessity, but also not choice, but necessity because of COVID. Like, so I was with him every single hour of every single day. And I'm feeding this kid, and I'm watching the sunrise, and I'm thinking about the story that people are waking up to, and it's filling their inboxes. And my daughters, my friends, my aunts, my uncles, all the people that I love, I wasn't that worried about. But like, what about the person that you haven't talked to, but you really respect, and that respects you? For me, it's like Father so-and-so that was my, like a mentor to me when I went to Georgetown, or my old, a girlfriend that I still respected and think that she's a good person. But and I look at Bo and I thought, I'm alive. I'm here. Like I made it. I made it out of that room if that picture was taken. And I could have died, and I should have died. And I'm here, and I have this incredible gift of life, literally, like you couldn't, in my arms. And I just did that every day. And every day, and it got easier. Until the point where I realized is that you get a choice every morning that you wake up, every time you open up your eyes. At least this is how stark it is for us, for addicts. And you know this to be true. Is I can get up today and kill myself, or I can get up and choose to live. And it's not like it's that dramatic every morning that I wake up now. But, for a period of time.
It felt like that.
It was. And for me, it didn't end when I just stopped drinking. When I just got clean and sober. I had to make that choice at every inflection point and every new sledgehammer. Like you said, like your life got like you had that period of like realization. Holy shit! Before you stopped using, I'm sure you said to yourself all the time, "Well, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do with my time? Well, maybe I'll start a business and a podcast and get a girlfriend and travel the world and
Live my life.
live my life and
Yeah.
like do all the things that people do that say this is the reason that it's the reason to be alive." But when you're in the midst of addiction, you just can't think of what you're going to do with that time. But I didn't get that opportunity necessarily because I'd get like, I'd get out of that starting gate and like a sledgehammer would come down, and, whether it was the quote unquote laptop or whether it was the, Department of DOJ investigation or whether it was the indictment or whether it was the conviction or the next conviction or the, my dad dropping out of the race or, Trump saying that he's going to do this to me or, Fox News writing. I mean, Jesus Christ, they're still writing stories about me at the New York Times. It's worse than Fox News. I mean, just like, get this. They just wrote a story about me in the New York Times that I tried to sell a stake in the a U.S. embassy to the Chinese. Like, how do you even do that? I mean, even if that was the plan, like, how would that even happen? But literally, in this idiot reporter, I mean, he's literally totally immoral, and he's like I think he's a Russian cutout myself, but whatever. But the point. But you know what? I don't give a shit. I really don't. Is that I've lost the control of the narrative for an entire audience. Nobody's going to listen to me, no matter what they say. But you know what? I haven't is for people that are sick and suffering out there. People that listen to this right now. I made it through. I made it. You can make it. The thing you think you're embarrassed about, I promise you, you choose to get up the next day and not use, you can still live. You can have a life. You can have love. By the way, not just love. You can have, the most gratitude, more gratitude than you could possibly ever imagine about being alive. I'm absolutely certain of it. Because just look, I was on the cover of the New York Post, according to Miranda Devine, in 1 year period of time, more than anybody in the history of the paper, and not one cover was positive. I mean, one cover was not a complete skinning of me.
I don't even know how ethically you're able to put out that kind of content about someone. I mean, it's
by the way, the ethics is that there's no ethics in what like someone as horrendously ugly as Miranda Devine, physically and in terms of her and in terms of her ethics, it does. I mean, she is and that goes for I mean, Daily Mail and but I mean, they're whores. I mean, they're whores for money, and she does it because she makes money, and when she goes to sleep at night, I'm sure she sleeps just fine. But I don't know anybody that's going to be mourning her when she's gone.
I
She's an
think
ugly person.
when I was researching the story, and I was trying to put myself in kind of your position and my family in that position, and I was thinking of like you were saying, people that you respected, people that you love. Seeing this kind of stuff and going through it with you as well. When you're, and if you don't want to speak about it 100%, but when your family and your father in particular, because I think it was weaponized against him, largely.
It wasn't about me.
But
yeah,
when he saw all this come out, what was the conversation like between the two of you?
It was, are you okay? What, honey, are you okay? Promise me you're okay. What can I do? Just pure love. He knew I was clean at that moment in time. He knew that the most important thing was that. He said, I just had to make it through to the next day. And and just pure love.
Mm.
Pure love. And by the way, I don't mean love without consequence. I don't mean being blind to the things that we do that are wrong. I don't mean that. What I do mean is that no matter what, loving that person. It doesn't mean that you excuse, but at least you have an explanation.
Mm.
They're two different things, and that was what my dad was always had for me.
And I mean, in terms of your father, he has been, and your whole family, you mentioned earlier, has been through so much tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the car accident that you were in yourself,
Uh-huh.
that took the lives of your mother,
Mm-hmm.
one of your siblings, your
My
sister.
sister, yeah.
How does, in the initial aftermath of that, how does your family cope, or like, I can't imagine what that must have been like.
Well, I was just about 3. My brother was just about 4. We were both in the car. We were both very badly injured. And the result for us is that obviously it's just like a tremendous sense of loss. And I'm sure, I don't know how much I fully remember. I do believe that I have memories, but but I don't know whether they're stories that have been told to me over and over again. But I still have a hole somewhere for my mom and my sister and clearly for my brother. Um, but anyway, what happened for us was we were surrounded by love. My aunt Val, my uncle Jim moved in with us. My grandparents, um, my dad's parents in particular, because they were in proximity, but my mom's parents too. We called them mom and dada, the Hunters and the Bidens. I mean, we were just completely surrounded by love, and we were surrounded by love from an entire community too. Because my dad had just been elected to the Senate. He was 29 years old. He's the youngest person ever elected to the Senate, and they surrounded us. But more than anything, I can't stress enough how much my aunt and my uncle became like uncles, came just a part of my life, our lives, my Bo and I. But I can't stress enough is all my dad. He kept that together. He got up the next day. He knew that he had a responsibility, not just a responsibility, but it wasn't because of some responsibility. It wasn't like out of a movie where, like, the bitter dad gets up and realizes that he can't let the kids die on the farm. It's because of how much he loved us.
Mhm.
And he did the things that I can't, I guess I can't imagine. I can't imagine. Is he just kept loving us.
Mhm.
And he surrounded us with love, and he was always there. And one of the things that my dad always said is back when I was growing up, there was a big push in child psychology about quality time, and parents need to be able to carve out quality time with their children. And my dad, I remember saying to me, "There's no such thing as quality time. There's just quantity time. Is it the end of the day, you just have to be present in your children's life. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to don't go to work and you have to, or like you shouldn't, like this whole idea of stay-at-home moms or not stay-at-home moms was a big thing back then. It's not that. It's that you just have to be available. But you have to sometimes be available to touch, to be there, for a hug, for that connection.
Mhm.
And he never disconnected, even in that grief, even in that period of time. I know, I feel that he was continue to be connected, and it's evidenced by the proof of literally the pictures that I see from that time. We were always together. We went everywhere with him, and it was the greatest gift anybody can give. And even with all of those gifts, and even with all of the privilege that I had in my life, I still became an addict. And now I'm not ashamed of that anymore. And a realization, some of it is the realization of the science behind it, and some of it is the realization of the impact of the role that trauma plays in our life, and some of it's a realization that, you know what, I just refuse to be ashamed about it anymore.
Mm.
And and much of it is the realization of the gifts that it has given me, is the opportunities that it has given me, is how my story has brought me to where I am right now, and how grateful I am for being where I am right now. But I always say to people is that I've never read, seen, watched in a movie, uh, uh, seen in a documentary a man that is more a father, a better father, um, better friend than my dad.
And I mean, he really has been there for you, right? And like I always say, I don't know what I would have done without my parents. I don't know how people survive what we go through without a support
I'm
system,
so amazed
you
by
know?
them.
And I mean, looking at your father now, right?
Yeah,
And the last few years of, him as president,
yeah,
right? The way the media was criticizing him and the way people kind of went after him for, like you said in your last interview with Andrew Callahan,
hmm
growing old in front of our eyes, right? As a son, what was that like to see? And how is your father doing today?
It's hard. I mean, it's much harder than I take criticism of him much more personally than I take criticism of myself. But that also is something my entire life being in the public eye is something that you get a little bit, you know, uh, hopefully you get a little bit more mature about handling. The one thing that I've never let bother me at all is if someone has a difference of opinion than my dad about something, his view on the Iraq War, or his view about Israel, or his view. I understand people can get impassioned and have opposing opinions. That doesn't bother me at all.
Mm.
But the way that Donald Trump uh, talks about my father, yeah, and I don't even know whether I should admit it, but it only makes me angry in the sense of like I feel like like I hate bullies. I just hate bullies. And not that somebody can bully my dad. My dad's the fucking president of the United States. He got 81 million votes. He kicked his ass. He proved that he couldn't bully him. Um, but taking advantage of someone's uh, responsibility, their uh, their their moral center, being as strong as my dad is, and using it in a way that is just so petty,
Mm.
um, uh, is something that I hope gets corrected one day. And so anyway, I think I lost the thread of the question, other than to
No, I
say,
think you answered it.
is it you know I I don't mind people having differences of opinion with my dad. I mind people lying about my dad,
Mm.
and twisting all that is good into something that is the exact opposite.
And how is he doing today?
Oh, he's responding well to the treatments. But he's going through it. You know what I mean? Like and I won't get into the whole thing because it's his health thing. It's all public. But he's going through it.
But
Going through it.
I mean, before leaving office, your father made the decision to pardon you, right?
Yeah.
Um, Clearing you of the remaining charges tied to your past. And it became one of the most talked about moments of his presidency, with some, calling it a scandal and others saying that it was just a father standing by his son.
hmm
What do you think that moment, or what did that moment mean to you personally? And how do you feel about the way the world handled it or responded to it?
Yeah.
And do you think it was fair?
Uh, yes. 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 Yeah. Um, Look, I am. incredibly grateful to my father for having done that. And I think that anybody that would say otherwise would like, what a obviously, I'm incredibly grateful to my dad for having done that. I'm also certain my dad would not have done it if he would remain president. And he would not have done it because I would have told him specifically not to do it, refused it if he did, because I firmly believed that I would win on appeal, particularly as it related to the gun case. That the Third, Fourth, and Ninth Circuit had already overturned the number of cases that relied on the statute, the 922 G3 that they convicted me under, which is, I won't get into the whole case because it'll bore the hell out of everybody. And as it relates to the tax case in the way that I paid all my taxes with penalties and interest 2 years before they ended up charging me for the late filings, and then basically they're saying that I lied on some of the deductions that I took. I'm fairly certain. At least I knew under a fair process that I would have a very, very good chance of having those convictions overturned. And so, for that reason alone, when my dad said that he would not pardon me, is because I think that that was his feeling also. Whether he would have had to make the human decision at the very end of the day, I don't know. But the world changed on November 5th or 4th or whatever the exact date was, at that first Tuesday in November, when Donald Trump became the president-elect. It changed drastically. And I don't think anybody needs more evidence of whether or not my dad not only made the humane decision as it relates to me, and by the way, me in a position of privilege, and I'm fully recognize this, that nobody else has. You want accountability? Look at this past 6 years of my life and the $17 million in debt that I'm in as it relates to my legal fees. You want accountability? Look at the fact that I basically could not go out the door without being harassed by people with bullhorns and red hats on for the past 6 years. And maybe that's not enough for you, for somebody that pays their taxes late or owned a gun in 11 days, that didn't use it in the commission of a crime, that never fired it. And maybe you think that I should be punished more. But remember what this investigation started over and who it was started by. It was started by Donald Trump and a handpicked U.S. attorney that remained in place out of propriety as it relates to my dad making the decision that he would not fire, as he does every other U.S. attorney that was appointed by Trump, other than this one. Look at the case and realize that it was started because Rudy Giuliani and a bunch of Russian cutouts, Andrei Derkach, Dmitry Firtash, who are known Russian GRU agents and criminals, providing Rudy Giuliani with information that I was involved in some bribery scheme. The person that filled out the FD 1023 that said that confirmed to the FBI, supposedly confirmed to the FBI, was arrested by the same people that charged me for lying to the FBI, is in prison right now. The other person that accused bribery scheme and they had an entire impeachment over it is a guy named Gal Luft, who was a known arms trafficker that was arrested by Interpol, and there's a warrant out for his arrest, and he is in hiding, probably in China right now, because he was selling Chinese arms, to Libya and Iran. Okay, so it was over none of that, But my dad is going to leave his son in the clutches of these guys that have now charged Letitia James, that have now charged James Comey, that will charge, I guarantee you, within the next 10 days, if not 3 weeks, Adam Schiff, a sitting United States senator from the fourth largest economy in the world, that was duly elected by over 35 million people because he doesn't like him. And so that's the calculation that my dad had to make. That's the calculation I think that my dad had to make about every one of the pardons that he gave that had any hint of politics in it. And you can say, well, oh my gosh, it's like a race to the bottom. Donald Trump went into office 2 days later, pardoned the entire of J6. He had people coming to him. He's going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. And you're talking about the pardon to me? The pardon to me for a bullshit gun charge and not paying my taxes on time? So that I'm not left in the Federal Bureau of Prisons at the potentially under Donald Trump, who's renditioning people to CCOT, a concentration camp in El Salvador? You got a problem with that? I mean, if you do,
I think any father
what?
that loves their
Go
son would
pound
do the
sand.
same.
Yeah, and that's my point. And so I am not being disingenuous. And you have people like Jake Tapper who go, well, this is an abomination, and Joe Biden attacked the legitimacy of the Department of Justice, and this bullshit. People used to say to me, you must be used to this. There's nothing like this. There's nothing like this in political history. There's nothing like this. And there is no reference that we can make to a character of one of the 46 people that came, or 45, I always forget because he was there twice, is 44 previous occupants of that job that have done what Donald Trump has done, including Richard Nixon and including Andrew Johnson. And, go back in history. He is singular, and he's made it clear. And look what he's doing. He's going to try to jail every one of those people that are J6, regardless of the people that were on the J6 committee, regardless of whether they received a pardon or not. That's this whole autopen bullshit. And so my point is that I think that it's proven out that my dad did the right thing, not just morally, but also as it relates to the law, in terms of removing me from the possibility of them being able to just do whatever they wanted with me.
And I mean, just to kind of come towards the end here, I want to talk to you about some of the conspiracy theories that have gone around over the years. And some of them relate to you guys, some of them relate to just America and the world in general, right? So it's kind of like a rapid fire round. So
the earth is not flat.
We don't have to get too in depth with them, but I kind of just want to get your take on them. So the Hunter Biden Pizzagate style conspiracy, right? So I'll explain a little bit here. The Pizzagate conspiracy started in 2016 and falsely claimed that top Democratic politicians were running a child trafficking ring out of a pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C. The story spread so widely that a man actually showed up at the restaurant with a rifle to investigate. Some online groups have pushed wild Pizzagate-style conspiracy theories about you, linking you to secret networks, human trafficking, or other baseless crimes. These are completely unfounded, but they've still gained traction in fringe spaces.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about these things is that they are, they're like viruses. They spread so fast, and they are so powerful, and and again, to the person that adopts it, in adopting it, he creates a connection with a viral network of people that are like-minded, and they feed off each other, and they become the virus strengthens through its own connections, and that's what it is. And it doesn't matter that, for instance, Comet Pizza, which I'd been to. And anybody in D.C. that lived in Northwest D.C. had been to 1,000 times for birthday parties and things like that, doesn't have a basement, but that's where that's where everybody was supposedly kept. And like all of these, is that some have a kernel of truth, some are just made up out of whole cloth, and it's trying to answer them. It's like this feedback loop. So what happens is somebody will make a outrageous accusation, and it will be in some quote unquote we used to call fringe. It isn't so fringe anymore. Candace Owens, for instance, who probably has more listeners on a daily basis than any single one of the hosts on CNN does, by a factor of 5. And she'll make some outlandish, Bridget McCrone's a man. Okay. It doesn't have to be based in any fact. It doesn't have to, and by the way, defamation is an incredibly difficult thing to prove, not to prove, but to hold somebody legally liable for if you're a public figure. Like, and I'm a public figure, not by any choice of my own.
I know all
but I'm a
about the
public
law,
figure.
and I know it's very, very
exactly.
difficult.
Very, very difficult. And so, and very, very expensive. Very expensive. And so what ends up happening is that it just metastasizes. And there's this feedback loop where somebody will, like Candace Owens, will make a claim, or Tucker Carlson, perfect example. Tucker Carlson will talk about, like, Hunter Biden, bribery, Ukraine, this, that, and the other thing, and he'll make a claim that I was funding a biolab in Ukraine. That, and this is a real one, that Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson.
I've heard about this one as well.
Yeah, and this biolab was in Ukraine, and it was infecting migratory birds with a virus that would fly over Russia to infect the people of Russia. And they connected me and George Soros to it, and then that goes to Fox News and Tucker Carlson and News. I mean, these shows, and then the New York Post writes about it, and then the New York Times, because they see that the New York Post and Fox News are getting so many clicks off of
They
it,
also report on it.
they report on the reporting.
And I've seen that so much in terms of the
Taking
way
it-
that happens.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like Errol Musk, right, during our podcast said that Michelle Obama is a man and that she has a penis. And that was one of the biggest stories from that whole episode.
Yes.
And you see one publication reports on it, and then 30 minutes later, 40 minutes later, almost an identical article comes out on every other major platform.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I say that the New York Times is as bad as the New York Post. New York Times is as bad as Fox News. And because they cloak themselves in objectivity as being the gray lady, the great newspaper, and they're chasing clicks just as much as anybody else. I mean, it is a dying industry, and it could become completely irrelevant to some degree. But it's still, and CNN, Jake Tapper, they provide legitimacy for the bullshit. And so that's what happens, is you have this continuous feedback loop of these outright outrageous lies about, whether it's bribery, about my art. Okay, what could I choose that could be more distant from politics than to pursue art as a career? It's paintings. They said that I was selling paintings for $500,000. I've never sold a painting for $500,000, never priced a painting for $500,000. I would gladly do so if anybody wants to buy a painting for $500,000 from me, but I don't sell paintings for $500,000, never did. You know what happened? Is the New York Post wrote a story, and they had an art dealer in Midtown Manhattan, who they do not give the name of, say, what would Hunter Biden's pieces go for? And the guy said, well, I think they could go for anywhere between $100,000 and $500,000. Okay? So at the time, I thought, wow, that's really cool. A legitimate art dealer. And the New York Post is saying that but I didn't realize that I was falling into a trap.
Yeah.
And my art dealer didn't realize that he was falling into a trap. Because when my art dealer then was asked by some other reporter, what do you think Hunter valued? He said, well, so-and-so in the New York Post said that his paintings could go to 100. Now it's my art dealer saying I'm selling my paintings for $500,000. Even if that was the case, though, even if that was the case, do you think that I could change any decision that my father was going to be making because somebody decided they were going to come? Don Jr. is selling membership for $500,000. Literally.
At least
and
with you, they get a
the
painting.
irony of it. But yeah, at least but membership to go in and sit with cabinet members. That's the whole, that is literally what they're selling. They're literally selling access. They're literally selling access. And they don't see the irony in that. I know they see the irony in that, but they don't care. It's all bullshit.
And in terms,
by the way, people, you're being brainwashed.
yeah,
You're just being brainwashed. I don't understand. And look, I forget about defending myself. You can like my art or not my art. I work really hard. I paint every day, and I painted my whole life. I mean, art is literally one of the things that saved my life, and I don't give a shit if people like it or buy it or otherwise. But it is literally one of the most important things, not just in my recovery, but in it is as it relates to my purpose. Okay? And they bastardized that. They just, I mean, there was a congressional investigation. My art dealer had to pay $500,000 to lawyers. The people that bought my art were hauled before Congress. Some of them that I didn't even know. The White House came up with some cockamamie thing that I would never, know my blah, blah, blah. The people that bought my art. It literally took, it took me a while to be able to just, block that out and just say, well, if you ever needed a lesson of why you just paint to paint. And why? And another thing, they did that to me. I still paint every day. I don't give a shit.
Because you enjoy it.
Now, beyond enjoy it, it is it's where I found purpose. It's where I found profound grace in expressing myself through painting, and the courage that it takes, and anyone that's ever created anything to share it with somebody else, another individual, is what makes it art. And you know what? And it's a daily exercise of me doing that. And it's really, really important to me. And it's really, really meaningful to me. And that's what they do, though. They attack the things that are pure. And with them, it's literally always projection or confession.
And in terms of your father, there has a conspiracy that he is a clone and Joe Biden was replaced and that he's not actually him.
No, that is true.
But I mean, where do you think stuff like that? And for example,
by the way, I wish we could clone him. I'm making an army out of him, and then we'll have a real civil war.
But in terms of stuff like that, and the Michelle Obama is a man, right? Why do you think people are so quick? And obviously, it's a bigger group than you would think that believe these things. Why do you think people want to believe these things, and why does it matter?
Because they're fucking stupid. I mean, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who I've mentioned before, when I was talking to Andrew. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a thinker during the mid-20th century and a incredibly courageous human being. And he was a philosopher and that wrote a lot about kind of living a Christ-centered life. And he was not an evangelist, but really, really smart guy. And he was part of, I don't know whether officially part of the Iron Front movement inside of Germany, but he was out of Germany when the Third Reich took power. But he went back to oppose them, and they jailed him, and the SS murdered him in jail. And one of the things that he wrote about was this: is that ignorance is the most difficult thing to beat. Hannah Arendt talked about how the banality of evil in the Eichmann trials, and her point is that at the end of the day, evil is just boring. Evil people are just boring. They're doing and she didn't mean it to in any way diminish what evil the evil that they commit. But you realize it's just it's bureaucratic. Is that ignorance, however, is what Bonhoeffer said, is almost impossible to defeat. Is how do you convince ignorant people of the subtleties of what they're experiencing or convince them otherwise? And I will tell you this, is that what is making us ignorant? It's our algorithms. What is making us ignorant? And this is what I want people to rise the fuck up, man. Wake up. Is you are being duped. You are being duped by your overlords. And I don't mean to use Matrix-like language or things, but you are being duped. And it's not some conspiracy, and I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the people that make money off of you. I'm talking about the CNN. I'm talking about the New York Times, not just Murdoch, not just Fox News. I'm talking about the algorithms that literally pull you around by your nose. And I'm not saying that I get sometimes pulled around by the algorithm.
Me too.
You know what I mean? And I find myself going down rabbit holes. I don't remember this one. Is that I literally told, I think, at least 10 people before I found out it was complete false, is that there was a major structure that was found underneath the pyramids. In
Yeah, I
Giza.
saw those memes. I think Joe
I thought it was
Rogan
the most amazing thing in the world.
I think Joe Rogan saw it as well. It was like these
can you
massive
believe that?
columns.
Yeah. And by the way, I understand. And by the way, but what, like, isn't that instructive?
Mm.
Isn't that instructive? It's like, wake up, people.
Yeah.
Wake up, because it's killing you. It's killing your health. It is killing us. It is turning us into addicts. I mean, literally, the addictive. I mean, you find the connection between. I mean, just the physiological connection of what it does to you, the way in which it controls your dopamine and serotonin uptake. It's absolutely astounding, and just look who's making money off of it.
Mm.
That's all you got to do, and decide. You know what? I'm not going to allow them to control my life anymore. And by the way, you will wake up from this bullshit if you do. I've woken up from a lot of the bullshit that is being pressed by the Democratic Party and the corporatists in that party, and the people that were willing to throw my dad overboard the moment that he had a bad debate. Do you know what I mean? And I realize it's all money, man. And it is absolutely, we have to have in the United States of America, whatever comes next is going to be revolutionary. And it may, and I'm not convinced that it's going to be good. I mean, I'm not convinced of who's going to win this fight. But we're either going to be the subjects of a bunch of feudal lords, literally a very small handful of people. I mean, over the course of the last 8 months, is that the only people that have made any money are billionaires whose wealth has increased by over 40%. It's like 80% of the stock market is controlled by like 4 or 5 private equity firms and hedge funds. I mean, and we can't figure out, like, how is it possible that Tesla is now $1 trillion company after you look at the numbers, you look at Elon Musk, look at market share, you look at him not getting the EV rebate anymore, you look at him, and people say, well, you don't understand it because this, that, and the other thing. I can tell you what, it's because it's propped up and controlled by a very, very handful of people. That's not a conspiracy. That's fact. Pizzagate's a conspiracy. You're not being controlled by some, other. It's like the way that people, I think, like they always want to be able to believe that there's some distant authority, whether it's God or whether it's aliens or whether it is the Illuminati, that are somehow secretly controlling everything, because it makes them feel in some way that they know something that other people don't know. It gives them power in their life. I'm telling you, it's none of them. It's none of them. It's the people that you see on TV every day. It's the 5 or 6 people that lined up behind Donald Trump because he summoned them to stage when he was inaugurated, or called them into the White House and made them give them gifts of golden orbs. And, wake up. Wake the fuck up.
And just to end off, I mean,
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who's feeling very, I don't know what the word is, but kind of like disaffected? Is that the kind of right word there?
I would say this: what an incredible time to be alive! What an incredible time to be alive! You are on the edge of a dawn of a new civilization, regardless of what Donald Trump does or what Vladimir Putin or anybody. And it's going to be a rocky road, but what a time to be alive! I mean, it is absolutely astounding. On the one hand, we may have a mass extinction event. On the other hand, we may cure cancer in the next 3 years. On the one hand, we may lose 90% of all jobs that anyone does. And I'm not exaggerating. 90%. Unless you're a plumber. On the other hand, you know what? We may be able to figure out how to provide sustainable, endless energy to the entire world. And so you have these 2 competing interests that are happening. These 2 competing things that are not in some distant future of some sci-fi that comes from the mind of Philip Dick. You literally are going to happen now. And you look and you get a little nervous. you see Sam Altman, who's got a little weird look in his eye, and you wonder whether or not, like, I watch Sam Altman.
That guy needs to stop doing
but
stuff.
I know.
Please, it's freaking me out, man.
Or even worse, you see Peter Thiel. You see Peter Thiel, who decides that what he wants to talk about in this next podcast is obsession with Satan. And you're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. These people are like out of a comic book. But my point is none of it, in all of their hubris, in all of their feeling of being of being Prometheus, that they are these demigods that are about to give birth to this new divinity. The bullshit is that they'll never be in control of it. And they're not in control of it right now. They have no idea. They will rake in millions of dollars and billions of dollars and possibly trillions of dollars. And for a period of time, we will suffer. But I am telling you this, the moral arc of justice does not always bend towards justice. I know that Dr. King said that. What it is a wave, like everything. It is a wave. And it's what we do in the troughs that matter. Mm. And we are, right now, at the bottom of one of those troughs, in which we are, in my opinion, heading down to it. It is, how do we rebuild? How do we envision a better world? How do we take the technology that is being granted to us, not by Elon Musk or fucking Sam Altman? How do we take that? And how do we empower people? How do we bring people in that have been out in the cold for so long? How do we bring those kids that are in their basements right now, that are those potential insoles, and offer them a life of service in which they can experience love? That's what we can do. And so, fact of the matter is like, look, man, I'm still out here talking and doing and trying to be of service. And I'm not perfect. But that's kind of fucking obvious. I'm not perfect. I'm not even close to it. But my point is that we have we're living in such an incredible moment in history. And as bad as things seem,
they can always get worse.
No,
I'm joking.
By the way, I have a friend who always says that. The way that he makes it through, he just says to himself, could be worse.
Yeah. There was that 12 Peaks or 14 Peaks documentary about Nimsdai, that guy that climbed, it was either the 12 or 14 highest peaks in the world. And they were having a lot of trouble the one day. Yeah. And they were like, we need to turn back. And he was like, when you think you're fucked, you're only 40% fucked.
Yeah, I like that. Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, Hunter, I want to say thank you so much for coming down. This has been an absolute roller coaster of emotions podcast. And I'm really glad we made it happen. And I appreciate you for spending your time here.
No, I'm grateful you asked me. Thank you, buddy. And thanks for sharing the stuff you did. Yeah.
And thank you so much for watching this episode of the Wide Awake podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all very soon. Cheers. Thanks, guys.